Richard, you ready to go? Andrew, let's crank it up, please. Alrighty. Welcome, everyone. Today is February 28th, 2024. Our Fiscal Court 5 o'clock work session. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance. For which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Alrighty, now I would like to invite Nash Cox to do our blessing. Good afternoon, Nash.
I'm happy to be here.
Well, we're happy that you're here.
You for wisdom, compassion, and guidance as we take up our responsibilities as elected officials today. May we see beyond our. We work together toward creating a healthy, fruitful Franklin County. By having a common purpose, we can bring and make our vision a reality for all our residents. Shower us with your blessings. Inspire us with your good.
Thank you very much. Apologize. For Hank Hancock. We had his funeral today. A lot of you in this room know him. He's a great guy. There's a picture of Hank. 21 years he served as a country in the military, private business owner. I mean, his list goes on. On and on. I mean, all those accomplishments, and most of them were truly for our community, and that was for kids. You know, he was big in Boy Scouts and things, the Cub Scouts and all those things. So in addition to the why, and I could go on and on about it. So it's a big loss for our community. So if we don't mind, let's take a moment of silence for Hank and his wife, Ann Hancock. Thank you. Alrighty, I'm going to ask anybody if there's any public comments. Anybody here to speak for the public? Sean, okay, Kimberly's here?
I wrangled him.
Really? Okay, I wasn't sure what was going on. So for anybody who doesn't know, this is Kimberly Jester. She's on the KCDC board, and she's been pretty pivotal during these times. Sean Cecil is sitting over there hiding. So they're two members of the board in case you all have not met them.
And our third member is Richard Rosemer. And just want to point out that Sean was recently elected as chairperson, so we've handed the baton over. But do thank you for inviting me today to provide you with an update about what's been going on with KCDC. If you remember, I was here a year ago during public comment to ask for your support for a project. A whole bunch has changed since then, but not my nervousness. That's the same. So let me just tell you what's been going on with KCDC. First, there have been some county residents for all three of those positions. In May 2023, Sean was appointed, as well as Vasu Vasudevan. And in December, he appointed David Lodmell. So we have a full board, very active. It's now on the second Thursday of the month at 12:30 here at Fiscal Court. And we want to appreciate your hospitality in hosting us and sometimes putting us up on your Facebook page. Our next regular meeting is on March 14th. I've taken upon myself to invite you, so if you would not like those emails, just let me know. It's our goal to be as transparent as possible. We want to keep you up to the live page, and we're learning how to do that for our virtual meetings, and we hope to have those kinks worked out soon. Second, there have been some changes to the staff. Caitlin Ballantine has joined KCDC as a part-time administrative assistant late last year. Also, our President CEO's contract ended on January 15th. And we're in the process now of that position will be a minimum of a 6-month contract and will serve as a bridge between the former president CEO and a permanent director. interim director and the KCDC board will comprehensively review and update the agency's policies and practices to reflect a new vision for economic. We'll be revisiting our strategic plan, the bylaws, and various policies such as finance, investment, personnel, procurement, among others. I came here last year asking for your support for a workforce development project, which was funded through a federal earmark. That project did get approved, and we have a grant for $440,000. Fortunately, we did have such a bit of a setback in the fall. We did not realize that the federal funds needed to be procured following KCDC's procurement policy. We're in the process of doing that now and writing an RFP to get a work. We're going to train 25 Franklin County residents in cybersecurity and IT. The 12-week online course will be offered through Kentucky State University and taught by this online training provider that we're going to get through the apprenticeship. The intent is to keep the residents here in the county so they can be either employed locally or through remote work. There is some misinformation about this project that's been out there, and I just want to clarify. First of all, we've not spent any of the funds, and second, nothing illegal has been done here. So we are working very, very closely with our federal program officer to make sure that we get this program. Franklin and Anderson counties were awarded $4 million in matching funds from the state as part of its product development initiative. This is a state initiative administered by the Cabinet for Economic Development to develop new industrial sites across the regional site. Is multi-jurisdictional. It's Franklin County partnered with Anderson County along I-127 and Keaton Lane by the Hope Church. Discussions are currently underway between the partners, Anderson County Forward, their economic development agency, Franklin County, KCDC, and Anderson County, as well as the city of Frankfort. The goal to discuss the investment amounts. We have to have $4 million in matching funds, evaluate the infrastructure needs, and determine the distribution of revenues from the future development. I want to assure you of what isn't changing. KCDC plans to maintain its core mission, growing the economy in Frankfort and Franklin County through the attraction of new business and industry and the retention of existing businesses. So as we look to the future, it's a very exciting time at KCDC, and I just want to thank you again for giving me the opportunity to speak with you. So.
Thank you very much. We appreciate the update. Per se. Microphone, please. Thank you.
Obviously, we read and see a lot of things in the paper, so more than anything, just kind of an update on where you were, where you are in the process, the interim, or
Sure.
things of that nature.
We just had another special meeting, and I'm sorry I didn't get it on Facebook. We tried. My IT skills are limited. But we are in, and we're not releasing that person's name just to protect that person. We're very excited about the opportunity. We believe that this person will accept the offer and begin working with us. So we'll announce it as soon as we get the
time. Do you have any idea how long this is going to last? How the organization is going to be? Is it going to see changes in regards to?
I think this person will be able to help us through that process, and so it kind of depends on where we end up. But we will be looking for a permanent director.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
6 months to a year from now.
Squire Sebastian.
Thank you, Judge. Kimberly, thank you so much for being with us tonight. You mentioned the $4 million matching grant by the state. Can you talk to us a little bit, because you indicated that Franklin County is a partner? And Judge, has that been here before the court?
We have not
Okay,
discussed
all
it
right,
yet,
thank
yeah.
you.
It's still in the very infant stage of figuring all that out, so yeah, we're
And
finally to
Anderson
the
County
point.
being a partner,
Yes.
and the city. Can you give us the parameters for, I guess, some of the matching component? Is it a 100% match? Is it a 50, typically there's a,
It's dollar for dollar, so we need to raise among these partners. There was an application submitted, and the 4 partners didn't include the city of Frankfort, but they feel that they should be represented. And so we're in the process now of trying to figure out that arrangement. And so, because they're responsible potentially for bringing sewer to the site, so that's the infrastructure needs. So, very important partner on that project, because without that, there is no project. So, I'm not currently in those conversations, but if you have specific questions, I can get you answers. But we're just at the beginning of trying to set this up. So we got approved in December, and we're just trying to make sense of what it is. But we do need to raise $4 million.
So is there a time frame? Typically with a grant, there's a time frame.
There is. That's a great question. So
I'm feeling my way through
No, I
this.
just got a great email where Lucas Witt from MWM Consulting is representing Anderson County Partners. And so he's been great at keeping us kind of informed through the process. We just got a recent email. We have to get approved through the Cabinet for Economic Development's Finance Authority. So the project has to be approved by December by them. And I don't exactly know what that entails, but we're going to have to get a lot more lined up before then. And I believe the money has to be spent by December 2025.
Okay. I have no doubt that I'm going to have a number of questions about this.
That is great.
So I'm
You and me both.
trying to take it all in here. Thank you very much, and
I
I'll
will
be
tell you
following
there are
it.
regular meetings among the partners to discuss, to make sure that we're all moving in the same direction. Everybody has the same goal. We have options on 3 parcels of land down there. There's a rezoning process that needs to happen because it's all agricultural land. So there are a lot of big steps that we have to take.
You said options. I heard the word options. Does that mean do the current property owners have to request the rezoning, or will it be sold to KCDC? And then that has
We still don't know. It's
I'm
my
prob-
understanding.
You know
that
I'm going to ask 1,000.
No, yeah, and we're still trying to figure it out, and we are going to have a meeting about this to figure it out, but it's my understanding that the homeowners have to request the zone changes.
So I'm not, because I don't feel that the partner agencies would want to get the land if it wasn't able to be converted to industrial zone.
Yeah.
Okay,
So,
thank
but don't
you.
put words in my mouth.
I'm trying not to.
No, I
I'm just
know.
trying
Yeah.
to make sure I ask.
No, it's good.
And she said it well, I think we're just all trying to figure it out.
Okay.
is what it is and what it looks like, and
Thank you.
if
I'll
it
be
is, and
certainly
Squire,
following up.
let's go.
Feel free to
Squire,
email with
Tracy
other
has a hand up,
questions,
and then
for
we'll go down the
Thank
line.
you. Thank you.
Did you have your hand back up? Oh, I'm sorry. Squire Tanner.
All right, so is the people who are supplying the infrastructure for that, are they all at the table? I think you mentioned the city would be doing the sewer probably right now. So is Farmdale going to furnish the water?
I don't know the answer to the water.
That's-
I was ready for electric.
That was early, and I'm trying to figure this out, okay? I'm trying to piece it together. It's my understanding that before anything was submitted for the PDI grant, all the agencies had to sign something saying that they were able to deliver utilities to that. I don't know if it was Farmdale or Plant Board. They kind of went back and forth, so they're both in the conversation right now. It's, like I said, we're
And I think
trying to
we
figure it
learned that there's an extension down there that's going to be occurring, and so perhaps we can tap into that. But again, I have a basic understanding
Yeah.
of the project.
I'm sure you all it'll be well thought through, but, I mean, I don't know that there's enough water for Farmdale to supply major industrial development. But now, they can put a pipe down through there if you all want to pay for it. Sure.
I believe, Squire, now that you're talking, I believe Plant Board supplies to Anderson County, so there's a bigger pipe that goes right by
They
there.
do supply
Okay.
Anderson County also.
And it's a direct pipe from
Yeah.
Frankfurt to
To-
Anderson County
yeah.
and can't be tapped on off of 127.
I just remember somebody
I
talking about
know
it.
that.
I know.
Well, there'd have to be
That's
some
correct.
changes.
Yeah.
As long as
Know
it's
that.
in the
Yeah.
discussion and you know, and maybe you ought to bring them to the table if they're involved in it.
It was discussed before we could submit the proposal to understand how the infrastructure was going to be brought to the site, because it isn't there now. And so I know that those conversations have started. I'm not exactly sure who's having them, though, like who the agency
Now,
is.
there's water there, but I don't know it was enough.
Squire
Good
Wisman.
question.
Yeah, well, one, Kimberly, I want to thank you. In your tenure alone, there's been a drastic transformation in KCDC and the communication with the elected bodies that didn't exist previously, in my feeling. So thank you for keeping us more up to date on what's happening. And, you know, the best opportunity for our community is when all of our agencies are working together and are single-minded, instead of too many times we've had in recent experience where personally I felt like the organization was working against the citizens of our community in many ways, at times for single interest. So thank you very much for coming and giving us an update and keeping us informed. This is the first that this body has heard officially about the 127 potential. Do you know when that application was formally filed on behalf of KCDC? How long has that been in the works?
It's been a process. I know, this was the second round. There were 2 rounds of PDI funding, and this is the second round, and it was done as a multi-jurisdictional project in order to, each county can get $2 million from the state. Maybe, I was going to say the summer, actually, maybe. There had to be site evaluations done, too, to make sure that it could be developed. Like, there's some engineering that's already been done on the site.
I know it's been in discussion for a while, quite a while. But, okay. We've got, or at least I have already been getting calls and emails and things concerned from citizens, and I just want to reiterate here that we're talking about that this is a process that will allow for some public input. There is a rezoning change. There's multiple avenues that our community and our citizens are going to be able to have their wishes, their thoughts as part of this process, including the comprehensive plan process that's going on right now. So there's not a situation where a project is going to be forced upon the citizens of our community. It will be an engaging process, and I will try to help ensure that it is. That our citizens always, in my mind, first and foremost, get to decide what happens in their community, right?
Sure.
So just wanted to state that for the record and anyone watching this meeting today, that there is going to be plenty of public engagement process, and what you've defined here looks sort of like about a 2-year process that we're working on before this ever really gets finished. So I thank you for that information, and just want to make sure our citizens understand that as well. So, and thank you again for what I think is going to be a new era for the agency. And I'm more excited about the direction it's going than I have been in a long time.
Great.
So, thank you.
And piggyback on Squire Wisman, I'd like to thank all the board members, because it's a big commitment. I mean, you don't have a lot of fans out there probably, but it's a tough deal, but I do think y'all are getting it turned around. So.
And I did want to say I'm one of 6 on a board.
Yep.
And together, we're pretty solid.
Yeah.
And we're all moving in the same direction, and we're moving forward, and we're looking ahead. And we feel that there's a lot of promise out there. So we do want to change some of the directions that the organization's been in, and this just gives us an opportunity to take a hard look at everything that's been done in the past and how do we want to do it going forward.
Kimberly, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sean, thank you for being that support there for her.
He even put on pants.
No comment. All righty, next I believe Richard Rosen. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing fine, thank you, Michael. And I want to thank everybody for inviting me to speak. If someone could pull up my PowerPoint presentation. You're going to see a PowerPoint presentation that's the same as what I presented to the Planning Commission a few weeks ago. I know at least a couple of you were there at that time. Candidly, I felt like some of the Planning Commission members were preoccupied with what I was not aware of was the election coming up at that same meeting for a new commission chair. And I would beg for your attention as I go through this program, because I really feel it is important. I applied to be on the advisory committee for the comprehensive plan. I wasn't accepted, but I've been attending the meetings anyway, just as a member of the public. And it struck me that a lot of people had opinions on the comprehensive plan should go this direction or it should go this direction. But there's a real lack of data. No one had really done an analysis on what the consequences would be if we chose to do this or if we chose to do that. So I got thinking about it and thought about what is the information that we need. And what I'm bringing you tonight is information that will allow you to make what you think is the best decision for Franklin County. How do I advance this?
Just tell Andrew. He's like your little guy in the sky.
Okay. So the comprehensive plan is to be driven by an advisory committee, and that is something that I don't feel has been happening exactly the way it was intended. There was 25 people appointed to the advisory committee, but the process started out by going through details on wording of what does this zoning requirement mean, and, you know, should we put a dash or a semicolon here and there? And I think a lot of people just became disinterested and dropped out. And what we've had left as part of the advisory committee for, I don't know, at least the last 9 months hasn't been a quorum. It's been a handful of people who have been driving this towards their agenda, and I don't think it represents this outcome that we would have had if all 25 people had had the wherewithal to stick with it. But you guys, I think, then will get to see the comp plan as proposed by the quote-unquote advisory committee, and you can decide whether you think it's in the best interest. And I hope this information today will help. The thing I want to remind you of is this comp plan. If you look at those 2 bullets at the bottom, which are in bold, comp plan is the single best opportunity we will have for the next decade to promote industrial growth. It's also the single best opportunity that we will have to stifle industrial growth. And you guys will decide where to strike the balance. Next slide, please. Where I started this analysis was I made a list of projects that need work in this city and this county. And you are familiar with a lot of these. You've struggled, you've wrestled with a lot of these. A new county park on the Elkhorn is something that I know people have talked about, a new swimming facility, renewable energy, riverbank stabilization, removal of invasive plants, the sports tournament facilities in the county. You can look through the list. You can decide which ones you think are most important. In fact, I would encourage you as a body to do that. Review each of these and make a priority list. But the amount of money that's going to be required to accomplish these things is huge. It's absolutely huge. And the city or the county just do not have that kind of money. And I really think we desperately need more revenue to come into the city and the county coffers. Next slide, please. I am proposing that one way to do this is to bring in manufacturing jobs. Why manufacturing jobs? Well, because they pay well. If we grow the city and the county with tourism, which I'm all in favor of, you must keep in mind that a lot of those jobs that will be created are down there in the line that says accommodation and food service. That's the people who work in the hotels and work in the restaurants. And you look at what their average annual salary was in Franklin County in 2021, and it's about a third of what a manufacturing job is. Manufacturing not only brings in good paychecks, those paychecks result in disposable income, which they then can spend also in the restaurants and in support services, induced jobs such as doctors, dentists, teachers, accountants, attorneys, etc. So the well-paying manufacturing jobs will create additional induced jobs. Next slide, please. Typically, this is information that I got from Kimberly, which she got from the state. In Franklin County, 1,000 additional manufacturing jobs would create about an additional 500 induced jobs. Manufacturing jobs at this point are paying about $52,000. The induced jobs would pay about $52,000 if you average out those higher income jobs with the lower income jobs. Next slide, please. I think some people are concerned. They have fears of what industrial development looks like. They think it's going to be an eyesore. They think it's going to be a pollution source. This is industrial park number 3. I went out and took these pictures. You'll see that there's a lot of green space. There's also roads and there's concrete. As far as pollution, they'll be hooked up to our sewer system. It'll go into the sewer system, the same as everything else in the city and county. And if you compare that to the next slide, Next slide, please. If you compare what we just saw was industrial development and compare it to commercial development, this is the shopping area over on the west side of town where Walgreens is, where the Hampton Inn is, where Aldi's is, and the slide in the upper left is the parking lot for customers. The area in the upper right, that's the area where the trucks unload and deliver in the back. The one on the bottom is looking over towards Frisch's and the Hampton Inn. And I would ask you in your own minds to compare which is more of an eyesore, the commercial development or the industrial development. I think it's kind of a toss-up. Next slide, please. Can we actually grow manufacturing jobs in Franklin County? And this would indicate that we certainly can. The Kentucky Center for Statistics shows that in 2022, we grew manufacturing jobs at 3.8%. Durable manufacturing grew at 4.2%. A lot of these jobs are coming in across the nation from reshoring of businesses where corporations move their manufacturing facilities overseas, and they're now seeing that they did too much of that and need to bring some of them back. There's also foreign direct investment, foreign companies investing here in the United States, as we've seen, and that job growth is even more robust. So keep those percentages in mind, 3.8, 4.2 percent growth in industrial jobs is what Kentucky has been seeing. Next slide, please. If you look at the growth in population over the past 20 years, Franklin County has been growing at an annual rate of 0.4%. Compare that to Shelby, Scott, Woodford, and Anderson. Those four counties have been growing at a rate of 1.8%. They've been growing 4 times faster than Franklin County. And why is that? Well, the last comprehensive plan was completed, you guys may know better than I, but I think it was like 14 years ago. And we quickly ran out of industrial land. So if you had somebody who wanted to come in and establish a business here in Franklin County, there was no land set aside for industrial development. It had all been used up. And so I think some of the large opportunities just looked elsewhere. Some of the small opportunities have tried to fit. We've even had companies that were located here that decided it was time to expand, and there was no place to expand, and they moved to a neighboring county. So bringing in new businesses, creating opportunities for existing business to expand, we need to do better than what we've done in the past. And I think one could make a good argument that we should be growing something closer to the 1.8, or if you throw out Scott County, because a lot of that growth was driven by Toyota, and you just look at Shelby and Anderson, if we could, just grow at the rate they're growing, it would still be about 1.5%. Next slide, please. This is the slide that is really the meat and potatoes of this presentation, of this analysis. What I've done for you here is to show you if you grow the population at an annual rate of 0.2, 0.4, 1%, 1.4, or 1.8%, what does that do to the population over the next 30 years? And what I've done in this analysis is I have focused on 30 years worth of growth. If you just set aside enough land for 10 years of industrial growth, you run a very real risk that 10 years from now, 20 years from now, we will not have any land that's suitable for industrial growth. Industrial businesses need land that is relatively flat and that has access to the utilities. And Franklin County does not have a lot of relatively flat land. We've got a lot of relatively hilly land. And so I would suggest that we set aside land for industrial development that will last us for the next 30 years. And so over 30 years, if you grow the population at those rates, you can see what the population increase will be over 30 years. And then what will that population consist of? 42% of it, if we assume that if we're trying to grow this with industrial growth, then 42% of those jobs would be manufacturing jobs. Another 21% would be jobs that were induced by those manufacturing jobs. 34% would be young people and retirees who are not part of the workforce. And 4%, I threw that in there trying to allow space in this analysis for remote workers, people who, like, we're trying to attract with the grant that Kimberly has just mentioned a few minutes ago, where they could live here, but their employer and their work might be someplace, a law firm in some other state, an accounting firm in some other state. All right. So if you're, no, stick with that slide, thank you. If you're going to create those manufacturing jobs, 1,300, 2,700, 7,500, 15,000, you're going to have to create jobs for, if the people are going to increase at that rate, you're going to have to create more jobs than that, because a lot of our jobs, a lot of our workers come in from out of the county. About half of the people that are working in jobs here come in from outside of the county. So you would create, you need twice as many jobs as you would create, as you would have for people. And if you assume that those jobs would be put to work at about 8 jobs per acre, and if you also assume that you're going to need to set aside more land than you really need, because how do I explain this? Okay, if you set aside 1,000 acres for industrial growth, you're probably not going to be able to use all 1,000 acres. Some of those landowners are not going to want to sell their land. Some of that land may have issues with the structure of the land that it's not developable upon. So I assume that you need 20% more land than you're actually going to put into work. And that's how you arrive at those bold numbers down at the bottom of 400 acres, 800 acres, 2,300 acres, 3,500 acres, or 4,700 acres. Now, why did they create a column for 0.2%? That's because there are some people on the advisory committee who feel like the population of Franklin County is going to grow by 3,000 people over the next 27 years. And this is based on a number that they got from the Kentucky Data Center, and they think that it's some sort of a magic number, and that there's nothing we can do to make that number larger than an additional 3,000 people. I don't agree with that outlook at all. It's saying that it is beyond our control. Whatever policies we adopt, good, bad, or otherwise, we can drive that number negative if we wanted to, okay? We can make that number bigger if we want to. And you decide what point you want to see this county grow. Those acres down there at the bottom, what do they represent as far as the percentage of total acres of Franklin County? 0.2%, 0.5%, 1.4%, 2.1%, 2.8%. We're not talking about, well, okay, it depends on your viewpoint. As a percentage goes, that's not that much of our county. As far as acres goes, it's all, I'll leave that in your judgment as to whether that's a lot of acres or whether it's not a lot of acres. Next slide, please. But the result of this, if we go to the next slide, please. The other thing is if however much industrial land we set aside, we can help shape what that industrial land is going to look like. And this is a list of ideas that I came up with that I think we can impose upon whoever develops this industrial land. Leave the existing trees wherever possible. Require landscaping with native trees and shrubs. Forbid the use of invasive plant species. Create visual barriers. Make sure the lighting is night sky friendly. Put in permeable surfaces on parking areas where you don't have large trucks driving over it. Design the buildings so that if you don't put in solar panels today, you can put solar panels in tomorrow. The buildings that are designed to carry that weight load. Retention and detention ponds should be approved by DNR and Fish and Wildlife. We can do things with this industrial land going forward that will make it more environmentally friendly as possible for industrial land. Next slide, please. All right, now, what kind of taxes are we going to generate from this industrial land? And again, I've shown you the same 5 columns. And if you grow the population at a steady rate over those 30 years, this shows you the cumulative incremental wages in millions. So if you look at the middle column, you'd be growing incremental wages at about $9.7 billion. And you'd be growing occupational taxes at about $115 million in that center column. That's assuming a 1.19% tax rate. 80% of the jobs would be in the county, taxed at 1%. 20% of the jobs would be in the city, taxed at 1.95%. So there's the occupational taxes that you would create by each of those different 5 growth rates. Next slide, please. I then tried to figure out what would we would see in the way of property tax increases. And first of all, if you're going to convert ag land to industrial land, right now ag land pays about $12 an acre. What I did is I went into the PVA, I looked up a bunch of different properties and looked at what tax rate they're paying. Ag land pays about $12 an acre per year. And you compared that to industrial parks 2 and 3, and I compared it to the new a bunch of the bourbon warehouses, including the new ones up on the bluff. And you can see that you generate about $5,000 an acre more per year if you convert ag land to industrial land. Not saying we should do that, I'm just showing you what the result is in the way of property taxes. I also recommend that we take some of this revenue that would be generated from this new industrial development and we invest it. And I'm suggesting that we invest it in infill development. This would fall mostly on the city's shoulders. We've got places where we keep building more shopping areas historically, and looks like we're continuing to do it in the future. And at the same time, existing shopping centers are closing their doors and turning out their lights. Okay, why is that? Well, if you don't have any job growth and you don't have any money for people to spend in our stores, then you're not going to be able to support more stores. Okay, yet we keep building more stores. I think if you create jobs, now you have people that will live here, shop here, support these stores, and we won't have to expand in urban sprawl and move farther out into the county. We can take infill properties. Like 2 infill properties that come to mind are the Century Plaza area over on 127 and the Eastwood Shopping Center over on Versailles Road. That's the rate that they're being taxed at today. Compare that to existing businesses that seem to be doing well, and you get that area over there by Aldi's, that's being taxed at about $13,600 an acre. The Franklin Square area, which is the Kroger on the west side, that's being taxed at about $9,000. And the Sir Riverford Apartments, that's the official name on those apartments over there behind Dick's Sporting Goods. That's taxed at about $11,000. So if we were able to do an infill development, and it's going to take some upfront money to make that land ready for a developer to work on, you'd be generating about another $8,500 per year in property taxes. Next slide, please. So here's the incremental occupational taxes that I've shown up on the top part. There's the cumulative I'm sorry, that title is wrong. This is the incremental property taxes. And the cumulative property taxes down there on the bottom come out to 26 million on the low end, 320 million on the high end. If you go to the next slide, where you add the occupational tax and the property tax together over a 30-year time period, that's the kind of incremental taxes that you'd be generating for the city and the county. Next slide, please. So if you go back and you look at where we started, all the projects that are not being funded because we do not have the funds, this is a way to grow those funds at whatever of those rates you think is in the best interest. But I want to remind you that jobs create a quality of life here in our community. They're what puts food on the table, what buys houses, what buys transportation, what puts clothes on the family's back. It improves the quality of life for the people. It also improves the quality of life by increasing the tax revenue, which we can then spend on projects to make life better here. And the one thing that I think oftentimes gets lost in this discussion is if you think of the kids who are graduating from the Franklin County, Frankfort City schools, last year we graduated 441 kids, okay? How many of those found jobs in Frankfort and Franklin County? I don't think too many. Local jobs give our kids a reason to stay. If they go off to college, it gives them a reason to come back. You've created some well-paying jobs here, both in the industrial sector and in the induced jobs that industrial sector creates. Next slide, please. The long list of needs for the community are currently going unmet. I would ask you, what is your vision for Franklin County? I don't think you have to accept whatever the advisory committee hands you. You need to think for yourselves. You need to think for your constituents. And the growth rate that we strive for is the growth rate that we will achieve. Last slide, please. One more, please.
Andrew, one more slide.
That's
it?
Is that it?
all.
Okay.
Yes.
Are you
It
good
is?
with any questions, Rich? You want to take a couple questions?
Absolutely.
Anybody have any questions?
There was supposed to be one more slide, and I must have accidentally deleted from the presentation. And what that slide said basically was, please think in terms of 30 years of growth here, and setting aside land for 30 years. And if we set aside a couple of thousand acres, you don't have to throw it all open at one time. You can do that in increments. You can set aside 400 acres, and you control the growth by not allowing them access to sewer if they move beyond that 400 acres initially. Wait till that 400 acres gets pretty well occupied. Then open up the next chunk and the next chunk over time. That way, if we have overestimated how much land we need, we haven't despoiled the entire land that's been set aside. We can control that growth. In 10 years from now, we'll have an opportunity when we're working on the next comprehensive plan to reevaluate and say, oh wow, we were too optimistic or we were too pessimistic. But if you're not optimistic now, you're not going to have an opportunity to be optimistic in the future because that land will be converted to residential or commercial property.
Squire Tracy.
Thank you. Thank you for being with us. Just a couple questions. Obviously, everybody wants to compare us to Shelby County, and I'm in Shelby County 3 or 4 days a week, and in Simpsonville, so I get to see all the industrial projects that they're doing, and especially the Simpsonville area. It's really nice. But knowing that Franklin County is only 212 square miles, and a lot of that's Kentucky River and Elkhorn Creek, is it really fair to compare us to Shelby County, them being 386 square miles?
Squire, you guys go by Squires, don't you? Squire
go by
Tracy.
Scotty.
You're going to have to be the judge of that. I can't advise you on that. I think one thing you should think about is if you look at the amount of industrial land we have available in this county, if we don't act now to set that land aside, then our industrial growth is going to dwindle down to nothing, okay? I'm not suggesting that we grow at the same rate as Shelby County. What was Shelby County at on that list? 1.2%? 1 point,
I think it's 8.85.
okay. No, it's higher than 1.85? Yeah, 1.85.
is the number.
Shelby County is growing 4 times as fast as we are. They have been growing 4 times as fast as we are over the past 20 years. I'm not suggesting we have to grow at 1.8. We might want to grow at 1.4, 1%, okay, something. But my opinion, we need to shift up into the next gear and get going a little bit faster than the 0.4.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I'm just asking because it would lead to my next question. When you think of the industrial park, or at least when I think of the industrial park, it's almost like it's a buffet. You've got everything in our industrial park. To where you look at surrounding counties, their industrial parks, you don't see that.
Okay, this is an important question. Actually, when I presented to the Planning Commission, this is a question I think that Brent Swager asked. Are we going to try to target large employers that take up a large footprint with a large number of jobs? Or are we going to target smaller employers with smaller footprints, smaller number of jobs, but more of them? Well, with our existing industrial parks, we've been basically doing fairly small parcels at a time. And if you look at some of those facilities that I've seen from the freeway over in Shelby County, they look to be pretty darn big. That's a discussion that I didn't get into here. You can do it one way or you can do it the other way. I think there are actually some advantages to having many smaller employers. That way, if one particular industry or business falls out of favor, people don't buy candles anymore. They don't do that. They don't buy gas-powered vehicles anymore. They buy electric vehicles, whatever. If you've got a diversity in your industrial park, I think you've got a little bit of a built-in insurance policy.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I know it's a lot of information. I know this is not the first time or last time we're going to talk about this. Squire Wisman.
No questions, just a couple of comments. One of them, thank you for coming. It was very interesting and eye-opening where we stand. It seems like we're standing in a place that we want to move forward. To me, he's moved to the right from the chart. And I agree. My economy classes I had said people can't make hamburgers and sell them to somebody else making hamburgers and you're going to get anywhere. You got to have somebody making widgets somewhere.
Yep.
And I also agree that your philosophy about smaller footprinted industries is not bad. In one of my other lives, I've got 9 or 10, but anyway, I sold feed to farmers.
So did my dad. In fact, I've
I
unloaded
wanted
many
to
semis
sell,
of
I wouldn't
Swift
go
feed.
to a big farmer. I wanted 100 little ones, because if the big one quits you, you're up the creek.
Yep.
And you're not necessarily that way if you got the smaller ones. And so that was a philosophy deal, nothing else. So thank you for coming.
Yeah.
Squire Wisman.
Yeah, thanks, Judge. Thank you for coming and talking to us, and we've talked a number of times about, many things. And, my opinion of Franklin County, and I've said this in so many meetings, is we have to do a fairly critical analysis of what we have that is true and authentic to us to develop, right? We don't have the land holdings that Shelby County has. In fact, we have a topography that's challenging, period, anywhere we try to put a shovel in the ground. I'm weary of places like Scott County that have sort of a monoculture that if they ever decide to leave, what happens to that community? But I think we have a great opportunity. There is a generational shift occurring right now nationwide, right? That the millennial age and on are picking where they live based on many factors that are about quality of life.
Even some of
Job
us geezers
accessibility.
picked where we
I know
wanted
you
to
all
live.
picked here purposefully because of some of those amenities that are tangible and intangible. That I think we have an opportunity, and I'm hopeful that maybe KCDC will be involved in that now in the future instead of driving one ideology, that we're going to look what's unique to us, what our land holdings are, what we can support, and then look nationally, who we're competing with, not just at the other counties that everyone's drooling over what's happening in Shelby County, but where we can pigeonhole ourselves in as something unique that no one else is doing, that we can be a great attraction. I think we have a great opportunity to do that. I don't think that is going to be large-scale industrial development with single or one or two, manufacturers, but I do think it's going to be things related to the bourbon industry, the tourism industry, things that are unique to Kentucky's capital, the landscape that we have here that we don't use whatsoever, to the level that it could be.
Well, if you look at our major employers, Eric, some of those feed the automotive industry in a smaller way. And I think I would hope that we will actually have an opportunity to do some picking and choosing. We are in a really sweet spot. Kentucky's in a sweet spot. When I moved here, I grew up in Minnesota. I lived in Austin, Texas for 25 years. When my wife and I decided to move here, we liked the fact that Kentucky is so centrally located. And businesses look at it the same way. Okay? You're close to the majority of the population in the United States, and Franklin County is on a major east-west freeway. Two major north-south freeways are just on either side of us. I think a lot of manufacturers are looking to Kentucky as a place to move to or to build. And I think we will be able to be a little bit
And we're
picky
within
and
one-day
choosy.
delivery to most of the U.S. now, right? So sort of my challenge is, we've talked about this in some ways, but I really want to see one of our agencies or all of our agencies do a critical analysis. Actually, back when we were doing the housing study, I brought a gentleman in that did the housing study to talk with our judge and our mayor about doing a feasibility study of types of employment based on our population, our age, our socioeconomic status of our residents, and those within, a reasonable driving distance to here, replacing state government jobs that aren't seemingly coming back. What do we have that we can actually support? And I have a personal feeling that a lot of that is the small startup industrial type businesses that are manufacturing goods and products that are tailored to this region, that can be sold nationally. We have some examples of that in the Woolery that's here, Canterbury Candles, and some of those homegrown business types that are that we're not competing nationally to get them. We can foster them here. So I would really like to, I appreciate the information you've provided, and I hope we can take a next step, actually doing some of that critical analysis on what is unique locally and where we can compete nationally. And I don't think we've done that yet. So I think that's a critical next step.
I agree.
Squire Sebastian.
Thank you, Judge. Appreciate you being with us. 3 years ago, I wrote something very similar. It was serialized in the State Journal, and it's kind of, I'm appreciating you picking this up because it sort of fell on closed ears maybe at the time. Maybe it was kind of ahead of its time at that point, where it discussed pockets of things that we could do, capitalizing on nursing at Kentucky State University because there's such a shortage across the world of nurses, not only in the country, not only in our community. It talked about capitalizing on tourism for economic development purposes. It talked about looking to the 100-plus universities that are within 100 miles of us who have brain talent and love the outdoor life that the Elkhorn Creek and other things, we have here, so that they are not commuting. My friends' children are commuting
I'm
in
smiling not because I think what you're saying is funny. I'm smiling because it sounds like it's coming out of my own mouth. I think this exactly
You probably read what I wrote 3 years ago.
I think exactly the same way.
Very
Sherry.
similar.
In fact, sometime, another day, I'd like to talk to you about that nursing portion.
It was an important thing to me then. It's an important thing to me continuing on today, or I wouldn't have sat down and put some effort to that. But it is and I had connected with Kentucky State at the time. Since then, 2 presidents have come and gone, so that is kind of scaled back, but it sounds like they're ramping up some things with nursing. So to me, this is very on point. It was on point for me at the time, and why we are not pulling in cutting-edge manufacturing and or grown things or capitalizing on the resources here, to the point I think that Squire Tracy made. we are 97th in landmass size out of 120 counties, and our topography is a tremendous challenge. We're bifurcated by a river. We have undulating and, rolling hills here, very rocky terrain. So there is, similar to our cousin counties in eastern Kentucky, lots of challenges with our land. So we have to do this in a very thoughtful, purposed way, rather than maybe the first person knocking at the door being the opportunity that we want to capitalize on. So I'll leave it at that.
I did a different analysis. In fact, I started with a different analysis. I looked at all of the corporations who had come to KCDC over the past 2 years and asked if we had land, if we had this many acres of land, it would create this many jobs. Okay, and I made some assumptions like we would maybe only be able to get one out of 10 of those would be actually we'd be able to bring it home if we had land available. But none of them came here because we didn't have any land available, and that would indicate that we could grow the business even more if we had the land set aside. I want to go back. Somebody mentioned the housing study. Eric mentioned the housing study. I was on that committee and helped select Points Consulting to do that housing study. And I thought they did a good job. But one of the things that we suffered from on that housing study was the same thing, that they looked at how our population has grown over the past 20 years, and therefore they projected pretty small population growth going forward. Whatever they assumed or whatever they projected, housing and jobs go hand in hand. And if we're going to create jobs, we need places for those people to live. And if we're going to create housing, we need jobs to fill that housing. And so that's part of the equation also that we need to look at.
Rich, we thank you.
I thank you.
Yep, thank you very much. Alrighty. Tammy, I believe you're up. How are you doing tonight?
Doing well, thank you.
Good.
So it's the time of year that we send out our invitation to apply letters for the outside agency request funding. And so I'm bringing to the court for discussion and decision on 4 different items. What is the total amount you would want to allocate this year? Last year we allocated $147,000 for nonprofits and $13,000 for interlocal special events. Do you want to fund solely projects, or do you want to fund projects and salaries? There's been some discussion around that in the past.
Do you want to go
In the
ahead and
past,
give
we've
us all
discussed-
4 things, or you want to do one at a time?
Let me stop at these 2.
Okay.
But in the past, we've discussed, or we've funded projects and salaries, but it's been brought up only funding projects. So those 2 things I think we need. $147,000 for nonprofits, organizations, and $13,000 for interlocal special events.
Can you give us a rundown of what those were, what kind of capacity you had there?
The organizations, yes, I have them here. Typically what happens is we send out the invitation to apply, and then I think the finance committee sits and looks at all of the information that we get back, and then that committee determines the amount for each organization.
So I think one thing we did last year was, we had, I think, 20 or 21 organizations, and then we kind of divvied money, this, that, and the other. So what we talked about in the finance committee is maybe working backwards, establishing what we feel comfortable, and then depending on how many people put in for it this year, figuring it that way. I mean, Amy I felt like she liked that better a little bit,
Yeah,
because
having
a set amount, so we're not just guessing and throwing numbers around, and then here's our number. So we're trying to be a little bit more fiscally responsible. I want to ask before we get going, what are the special events? With that $13,000, what is that?
So,
It's 113, I thought you said.
13,000.
13.
Yeah.
Fair,
Bourbon on the Banks, Franklin County Fair, and focus on race relations. Are the 3.
Okay, thank you. So the two things in front of us is, do we feel comfortable setting amounts for both of those tonight? Because Amy, we're obviously going into budget mode, and she asked it would be nice to have that number. That's not a must, but the must on this next one is when Tammy sends that letter out, is it okay if organizations use it to help with payroll or any needs as far as that, or just for projects only?
Judge, if I can, I appreciate the concept and the thought, but and my feeling is many of these nonprofits that are relying on us for funding, their requests inform us to some degree about what the need is in our community, particularly in the form of services that our court doesn't offer on our own that might fall to us otherwise if these agencies weren't in existence.
So let me clarify that. Amy said we can change the number. She was like, if we could just get a number and try to stick to it, but if we had to change it,
If we can,
then we could.
we could line item something for
Yeah, that's what she
now,
was
but
looking- I should've- yeah.
I'm wanting to be sure that we're not hamstringing some of the agencies that, we all know the homeless population, the housing issues, some of these things are exacerbating regularly. The food need with inflation in our community alone, and the elderly center, they're seeing an uptick in everything they're doing, right? So I want to make sure we're meeting those needs no matter what, but of course, I feel like it almost has to come in after we've taken care of all of our obligations to see what we have and what we can do in the end, rather than setting an amount up front. I will say, for one, we offered to help one of the local events last year, who then turned around and gave away $50,000 in funds to different scholarship things, and I think we can put those funds to better use in the future, so I can't support that one anymore. The other two that we had for interlocal agreements, I think, used our funds wisely and could have used much more in the end, but we can only do so much. But the nonprofits, I want to be sure we're not hamstringing, or artificially limiting what they can request from us in any way. Even if we put a line item in, I want to make sure, that we don't put out an all-call that says we only have $140,000 available this year, and you can only request 10% of that or something as a maximum. I'd rather them come in with the need and see really what the need is out there.
So I'm fine with that. If Tammy's fine with that, I'd say Amy would be. So let's look at the big question. When Tammy sends this letter out, and typically the agencies, most of them are getting less than, it's a couple thousand a piece, something like that, give or take. There's only a couple, like a 10,000, right?
There's,
We need to decide if it could be used towards labor
several
or
that are
projects
over.
only. That's the question.
So can I?
I was gonna
since
let
I'm
you
on that-
and Sherry speak,
since-
because you're on the
yeah,
committee.
So Sherry and I
Absolutely.
have a little bit of a difference of opinion on this. I do not feel like we should, I feel like what they need it for, they should be able to use it for. I think that they have a very difficult time paying salaries sometimes, and, they may get a federal grant that pays 80% of their salary, and they may need the other 20% from us, or they may need a match from us, because a match can't come from state or federal dollars, but it can come from us, that kind of thing. So that's something to think about. And I think last year we had this conversation, and I don't remember if did we send that out in the letter saying that it had to be project-based and it could not include salaries? I don't remember if we did that or not, but I know that we had a conversation about it. So that seems to be kind of the thing this year, that we're struggling with in that committee, that we need for you all to help us with.
Sherry, would you like to go ahead and, since you're on the committee, go ahead.
Actually, I'd really like to hear from the rest of the court.
Perfect.
Because I think that will help inform the finance committee without
Yeah.
giving a preconceived notion of where that sits at this
Yeah, that's
point.
fine. Squire Tracy.
Thank you.
No, you go ahead, maybe I'll learn something here. I'm serious, I don't know, I can say my piece if you'd like.
Go ahead.
It seems to me like it's very difficult for us to pick a number and say, do you want to stick with this 147 plus the 13, or you want to change it? Well, let's change it to 250.
All right, so let's leave the
All right, so
number
we're gonna
now.
have to come up with a better way of putting a number out here for me. I'm not interested.
Yeah, no, I'm saying, that we've already pushed that aside. Squire. All we need to decide, we've pushed that aside, we're good with that.
Told
So-
you should speak first.
Let me
question-
help inform that part of the conversation, okay? Just, I think why our treasurer and our community development specialist have asked for it in that way. Previously in the court, when requests came in, we got to a situation where our past leadership was almost, this is a terrible phrasing, but was auctioning who would support giving 1,000, who wants to give 500 more. And it's not a matter of being light to me. That is, funding these agencies is very critical because I see them as extensions of what government has to do. Because if private business could do it and make a profit, they would do it. And they leave a number of social service aspects to governments to take on to perform because private business isn't making a profit. Now you can.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
And so if we don't pick up that social network, and we don't pick up that social net, it's very difficult. So to your point of saying, because but I think what they are attempting to build a structure around, maybe that's the wrong term, but is to try to say, out of our working budget of $32 million, what type of portion would we like to see, just in general, set aside so that we could put that to outside resources that will help our community continue to grow and flourish, and we take care of our people, because we are responsible for people and property here.
I don't see how you can come up with a number, I agree with some of what Eric said. It seems to me like we gotta fund our mandated obligations first, and then decide how we're gonna divide out what's left. That's gonna make our priority, even though I disagree with one of the statements he made, but that one I don't. I don't know how you come up, I don't say you can write down a number and say, well, okay, this is the number we're gonna shoot out here, 160,000 is what, I've added that up right. And
But I can give you an example. One agency requested $50,000.
well, obviously.
And, however, on the backside of that, there wasn't information to help support the request. And so the court at that point had already closed the window. So then it was like, we're trying to get information from the organization to help either justify or at least elaborate more on what the request would support within the community. And it was challenging because we left that to the very end of the budget process when we had a limited time for that sort of staffing to get back to us. So there are a number of factors that the staff is trying to say, let's take all this into consideration, because if we leave them to the end of the budget process and it has to be submitted, turned in, and there's a time factor, I know you're very clearly aware and keenly aware of that. Do we leave them enough time if we wait till the very end for them to get back with us with meaningful information for us to make the right decision? And please chime in if you're... So that is a timing challenge.
I don't have any problems you sending the letter and tell them send your request in as soon as possible.
That's what she's gonna do.
The budget's timeline
She's
is
going
May
to
the
do that right
1st.
away.
Okay, so let's go back to, let's just push that to the side. Let's go back. What is the will of the court? Can these agencies use the money to, if there's shortfalls in their budgets, in their payroll, or is it projects only? Right, Tammy? That's the question we
So
need answers.
two things. Last year, I recommended, and we did an addendum or attachments that to get your funding, you had to prove that the funds were going to a public purpose. And I'm adamant that we do that. We're giving taxpayer funds to something that cannot be used to host privately an event, let's say, that has a ticket price that not the entire public can get into. I don't think that it meets the minimum standard of serving the public
She
need.
has a lot of questions. I think that's covered, but yeah, keep going.
But I live in a nonprofit world, right? Nobody wants to fund salaries, and you don't have organizations or services that exist without those paid employees. They're already doing those work, God's work at a discounted rate. They basically give their life and their economic opportunity to do the social service that they care about. And beyond federal funds, which are so hard to get a hold of, almost no grant funds want to pay for salaries. If we want to keep these social services in our community meeting the needs of our citizens, we have to. So I'm adamant that we continue to support salaries and otherwise, but with the caveat that whatever work that is being done has to serve the public purpose and has to be equally accessible by the whole public. So that's where I fall on it.
All right, so there's Squire Wisdom, Squire Tracy.
Obviously, I think we all know that when you allow people to send in their wish list per se, they're asking for $50,000, $60,000, $100,000, and then somebody's got to be the bad person to cut it back, because if we just gave it out, we wouldn't have it. So I think that we all are aware of that. I'd say congratulations on you all getting to work on that. The one thing that worries me, and again, I know in the past that this has been brought up, and I think it was something that it was all about the projects because we wanted to see a return on what we given, but also understand the salary aspect of it too. My question would be is, let's say there's an organization out there, right now they have 2 employees, a year goes by and now all of a sudden they're wanting to bring on 3 and 4, which obviously that's going to inflate their request. And then knowing that there are positions that are needed within county government, things of that nature, where would that stand in regards to staffing of these agencies? Where would that stand if those just continue to grow and grow?
So can I?
Please.
What we did last year, sincerely, like, we give them very little money. Like, we're talking $5,000. So we're not staffing anything. Like, we're giving them so little that, like, I'm talking about like a small match is what we're doing here. We're not staffing any nonprofit. So that, I think that argument, we give each nonprofit, what, like $2,500, $5,000? It's
Say on average, it's
$7,000, $10,000. Like, it's not a lot of money here. So we're not staffing even one full-time salary at all. Just so you know that. We're not talking about 50 grand or anything.
There's 21 nonprofit organizations that we funded last year that totaled $147,000, so that should give you an idea.
All right, I'm going to ask Squire Blackburn, Squire Tanner. I guess we got to kind of take a rally here to see what we're going to do.
So, I guess the point we're speaking on now is, are we limiting what they can spend the funds for? I wasn't aware that in the past that we did limit what they were for. I think it was an as-needed basis. We looked at each one and their request and what they said they were going to spend it on. I think that's probably the most thorough way. It's not the most expedient way. But like you said, if they're running tight at the end of one of their budget cycles and they need to use some of those funds to make payroll, I don't have a problem with that at all. We do give them limited amounts of money, and I think they spend every penny as best they can, because that's what they have. I am, in the same boat with Eric on the fact that there are some agencies we've given money to that I think in the beginning to me it seemed like it was seed money to where they could get it up and running and off the ground, and some of that needs to be, okay, you're there. You don't need any more from us. You don't need tax money to be spent for your cause. But as far as the social service programs, I think it's tricky to say you can only spend it on this or only spend it on that. when their need may be different from one organization to the next.
Okay, thank you for your words. Squire Tanner, any comments?
I agree with JW. There's no reason for us to try to micromanage because we don't know what to micromanage, and I agree with you.
Tammy, I think that's the gist of the court there, so let's just basically do like you did last, I think, maybe add what Winston Squire.
It's in there.
Okay, it's in there, perfect.
Mhm.
Okay,
So
and you
that
said
must
you
have
had
come
two
up
other
last
ones.
year. Yes.
Judge, I would like to see maybe some additional information, though. I would like to see the agency's budgets when they request this year. And I'd like to know if they're applying and receiving any other. So many of these groups get city funding as well. So it'd be nice to know sort of what public dollars are going to support these agencies. so
We
have a
get that,
better
we get all of that,
full
and we
picture.
even ask for an audit. I mean, we get everything we can
We got that
get.
last
None of that came to the full body to
Well,
consider
okay,
last
so
year.
you're saying you
I'm
want the
saying I
whole
would like
body
to
to
see
get it.
that this year. If
Gotcha.
that's part of the application, great.
Yeah.
Like we discussed, on average, these grants are $5,000 to $10,000. And I send out summaries to you all so that you can see what these organizations are doing with the money. This takes up a lot of administrative time, it affects not only me, but the treasurer and accounts payable when we get these requests. So I'm proposing that any organization that we award $10,000 or less, that they do a one-time request. We already have some organizations that we do a one-time request, like for $1,500 or less. But I would like to bump that up to $10,000 because of the tracking and issuing the check, and it has to come before you guys. I would propose that they do that in the third quarter, so January to March. Anytime during that time frame, they could do that one-time request and provide us with a summary of their activities up until that point.
Thoughts on that? And I'll throw it out there, I'm supportive of it, because I think that it was kicked around because, we talked about doing it right in the beginning, and I think maybe Squire Sebastian said, there's been organizations that have gone bankrupt, so we don't want to do it right at the beginning of a budget period, and we can't foresee things like that. So I think for the most part, I don't want to speak for the whole committee, we kind of kicked around the third quarter, then they should still be in good standing, so happy to hear from anybody on that.
And you all good with that?
I'm fine with that. I think, it makes a lot of sense to me for them,
I
honestly.
made the recommendation to have it later in the year. That way we can we have a track record of what they're utilizing all resources toward, because on a quarterly basis, we get information from them. And so that helps us understand how their services are flowing throughout that year. So I made the recommendation.
Well, and I will
That's my
say
thought.
too, that I think a lot of them, even though we're having this discussion about salaries, a lot of them do actually use it for a project. And as long as they know this up front, then they can budget for that. They can use this for whatever they want to use it for. They're just going to know that it's not going to come until a certain date. And so they can plan for that. As long as they can plan for it, I think we're okay.
So is everybody okay with that?
Sounds like
Any
it's
other
3
thoughts? Okay, last one. You got one more, right, Tammy?
Last one.
I'm not rushing you, I'm just saying, yeah.
The question was brought forth about should the Council on Aging go through this process with the other nonprofit organizations? And so we discussed this again in the Finance Committee and bringing it to the entire court. Amy and I have talked about this, and so what I would like to propose is that we establish an agreement with them, like we do the Humane Society, because, the county is mandated to have senior community services. We're not mandated to fund them, but we do. And so to keep them from going through this entire process, and having a funding mechanism such as an agreement, that's what I would propose. What do you all think?
Right now, they're funded at $70,000, just
Yes.
because someone's going to ask that question, so I can tell you.
I don't- they're-
What other facts do you want to know?
I think
I got
everybody
it.
knows what the senior center here in Franklin County does, and they're just amazing organization that is, the whole state is envy over. I mean, I don't see any problem doing a line item for them because we know what they're doing on a day-to-day basis.
Second. How will that payout be? I mean, is it going to be?
It'll be quarterly.
Based on a,
I'd
and
like
it would
to
be
see that
scheduled
quarterly.
instead of a request?
Right.
Yeah,
Because I know in the past, we've had organizations, I've seen in the bills, well, they're getting payment 2 and 3 in the third quarter, and then see them on social media struggling for money when maybe somebody in their organization didn't ask for it when they should have. I don't want to see that happen again, because that was bad on that one organization. So having a scheduled one, I think that'd be great. So they know it's coming, they know what day it's going to be.
somebody have this question?
The organizations, do they have, let's say they're quarterly or the third part of the year, I mean, so they have to send in a request to be paid out, okay?
They send an invoice in their summary of activities.
Do we send out anything saying it's coming up, send it in?
I do, though, have to chase after those organizations that don't do it. Like I just sent out a number of emails where I don't have a second or a third quarter request. And I'm like, hey, you can submit both of these requests on one invoice. Just send your
But
summary.
you are sending out a reminder to,
Not every organization, but that's the other reason why I suggest just doing a one-time for 10,000 and under, because there again, that's just more time.
you're not chasing.
Yeah.
And just remember, as the fiscal court, we have to have an invoice in order to be able to make a payment. So it's not something that we just automatically just do offhand, no matter who the vendor or who the agency recipient is. So just please keep that in mind. That is why.
I'm just thinking if they need money, we shouldn't be having to chase them down.
It is a shocking
Yeah,
statement.
I mean, I think if you put dates on it and they miss that date, I know things happen,
It's a
but
shocking statement.
Yeah, I don't really know, if it's volunteers and, they're doing a regular job and this is just a side
Often.
thing, then they're,
Squire Wisman.
Judge, one, any money that is used outside of our operations, right, I think we have to have some accountability to the public. So I think we absolutely need some kind of contractual relationship with agency that's providing services, like the elderly center, who's providing services sort of, or effectively on our behalf. Whoever that may be, I think we have a couple of others that might fall under that same umbrella. So I would either prefer that going forward, we have a contractual obligation with everyone, or they go through a process where they make requests to us like the two we're talking about here. I think we have, well, in my previous life, went through a training one time, and there was a lot of hesitancy about government giving funds to any outside agencies, and some folks were, singing the pitfalls and the things that could happen and how it could come back on the governmental body. And that's always made me very cognizant of making sure that we have plenty of accountability for those funds, and if the agency fails to produce what we expect of them, that we have some revisionary ability for that. So let's create something. If we don't have anything in place, I thought we had something in place with that agency at least.
Squire, do you have something, or are you just holding your pen up?
Since we're talking about this, and maybe we shouldn't be, it's a question I've had for a while. I hadn't gotten a very good answer yet. Maybe I can't. But is a friend of the court treated like everybody else? Because we gave him $100,000. I have no idea what they do.
Are you talking about the CASA
If you want,
program?
well, we can invite,
They have come in the past
Have they?
and spoken,
yeah,
yes.
until-
Since I've been here?
no, we can have them
Also
over, the
friends
judges
are
will
separate.
come over and explain it.
I'd sure like to know what they
That's
do.
where that,
Yeah, it's,
There's only 2 in the state of Kentucky.
yeah,
from the court.
so that's fine, we can set that up. I'm sorry, Squire, Sebastian.
They're separate, right? The CASA and Friends of the Court are different.
They are two different
two
entities.
different.
What did I say? I
No,
said
you-
Friend of the court, yes.
You said it right, but yeah.
You said
we'll
everything
get that.
right.
Go ahead.
So Judge, in the past, we've given money to an organization or organizations that we found out later, staff have absconded with funds. So to Squire Wisman's point, how are we going to handle when that happens? Do we automatically cut the funding at that point? If they have gone outside of the scope of what they've told us, or we find out there is a matter of litigation where funds have been absconded with, do we cut that off? I'm trying to understand where he's going with how deeply, how much detail are we getting into these contracts? I just need to understand that.
Yeah.
I want to understand that for the purposes of finance, because we need to talk about that in finance.
Max, what are your thoughts
So-
from a county attorney standpoint if that were to happen?
I'm just trying to understand what you're,
Yeah,
yep,
Criminal conduct,
Yes,
which they can
sir.
prosecute for it.
but what happens, well, let's say it's in the second quarter and they haven't got their funding yet, do we have the authority to cancel their funding that we've already approved? Is that the gist of it, right?
yeah, because
Okay,
it's
that's-
happened.
Yeah,
I thought we were talking about establishing agreements.
He was saying that there need to be terms in the agreement. I'm just trying to figure out how
Yeah.
detailed we get in these agreements. If it says, and maybe that's a matter for us to discuss outside of this and bring recommendations back, because we can bog this meeting down with
Yeah,
lots
no,
of
you're
stuff.
right.
And I don't want to do that. I'm just putting that out there, that I guess as part of that, we consider those matters, because unfortunately, we know that's happening.
yeah.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So Tamara, you good?
Yes.
We got 3 out of 4. You did good tonight. Alrighty. Next, our road superintendent, Duke, is with us. Duke, how you doing this evening?
Doing great. How y'all doing?
Good. Thanks for being with us.
Yes, sir. I just wanted to update you this evening on what the road crews have been doing, and then also our new facility progress. Our road crews last couple of weeks have we still got a tree crew out trimming on a daily basis, weather permitting. They've been out in Avonstoke, Hickory Ridge area. They've been out Hunter's Trace. Just hitting the worst roads and places we need to be. We've had a culvert crew, ditching crew out. We had a nasty situation out on Old 60. I think we've resolved it with a little culvert work and ditching. Been running a patch crew most days when we can. So that's about the gist of that. As far as the new facilities progress, it's going fairly well. As you can see, they've got some of the metal up on the vehicle storage building. And then the salt barn's coming along fairly well. Hoping to pour the slab for it Monday morning, which is about 175 yards, so it's a pretty good job, yeah. And then our...
Thickened slab, right?
Yes.
Thickened slab.
Yes, sir.
Right.
And then our old salt storage building, you can see about 2/3 of it's gone. That was the judge's idea, which turned out to be, I thought the whole thing would collapse, to be honest with you, because it's in pretty rough shape, but it turned out well.
They looked at me like I had 3 eyes. I said, let's take 3/4 of it down. We can keep digging that footer.
So we can continue on, with the shop now, footers. Otherwise, we'd been in a little bit of a hold up on that, but did find out today that the roof structure for the salt barn, they're coming to erect it on 18th.
Oh,
So it's all gonna work out real well.
And that's already been delivered on site, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It is on
Perfect.
site.
Yep.
And a lot of all the storm water structures were delivered today, which I think was on one of those. Yeah, that's it, unloading them there. So everything's coming along pretty good.
Good. All right. Questions for We'll go ahead and do questions, and then I think you have a visitor with you, so if you want, we'll go ahead and just hit that
Yes,
while
sir.
he's here, so. But questions on road department?
I did have a question. We had a change order last time. Do you remember what that was?
Rock and the salt bin. I
Yeah,
think.
it's for the salt bin.
Remember, we were paying that for ourselves, so we don't have to pay a tax or on it.
Right.
And all that's been installed, so.
Square Tracy.
Did you ever ask them why they had the columns on the insides of the walls on the salt bin?
I have not, I talked to the engineer on that.
Square
I think,
Tracy.
to be honest with you, it's for looks, from the exterior would be my only thought. I mean, I'm sure that may not be it, but.
Form over function?
Just an engineer.
I am
We all know
so much for
engineers.
that.
I mean, let's be honest.
Function,
Engineer.
function.
All right, Squire Tracy.
Thank you for getting, did you get a chance to speak to the state or Scott County in
I
regards?
have not. I called and left a message with JR, and of course, he's a busy man. He was in a meeting. And, but I'll touch base with him again tomorrow.
Thanks.
Hey, Duke, do me a favor, send me a text and I'll send you Pat's number from the state.
Okay.
Yeah, his cell phone, he'll pick up. Squire Witzman, do you have a hand up?
Just what Squire Blackburn mentioned, I thought I remembered you stating that we were going to need to do another budget amendment for that gravel, for that
It's just in
salt
our
barn.
bills
Was
to be
it?
paid now. I just said, well, we'll make sure everybody realizes that.
It's just an addition to?
Yeah, it's just an
Okay.
addition. So it'd be in our regular bills, it will fall under, Amy can still pay for it out of the money, but it'll come through our bills. Yeah. Squire Tanner.
We discussed this at the road committee meeting, and y'all referred to talking to the people in Scott County and the state.
Yes, sir.
That was about canceling that epoxy for
The
the floor,
epoxy.
is that correct?
Yes, sir.
How long, and you did mention at that meeting how long they hadn't started, we hadn't gone anywhere, we could still cancel that, is that correct?
Yes, sir, we can.
To make
I mean,
sure
we've
we're-
got plenty of
got
time on
to
that.
do it.
Yeah, we probably still have a month or two before they're let us for us.
Remember we discussed
Yeah.
where that was in the
Yeah,
process.
but he didn't get hold of Scott County, but I'll give him the state guy's number so we can get some answers there.
We budgeted additional for the epoxy coating.
We-
Is there a
there's-
desire
there's
to not do that?
We might not, so we're kind of weighing options.
Cut it off.
That is peeling up, it is an existing thing that they did, so we're trying to make sure it's apples to apples. So we're wanting to talk to a couple other people who have built these for their own road departments to see what their thoughts are. So yeah, potentially it could be a deduct, but we'll see. Alrighty, Duke, you want to go ahead and bring, we're going to go ahead if it's okay with everybody. We all know in the building, so we got to have a couple things. So in the building, we have 2 lifts that we have budgeted in there, that we're going to pay for, ourselves and decide on that wasn't in Codel's contract. We're going to talk about that tonight and vote on this tonight, but I also want to talk to you all about, and I don't know, did Wesley?
He was here.
Okay.
I haven't seen him.
So we need to get from Wes, he has a running list that was in the budget of like all interior finishes that we have to pick out and buy, basically. So it's the refrigerator, microwaves, things like that. He's supposed to be getting us that list, because what I'd like to do is just figure about what that amount is and just approve one big number, so we don't have to come back for everything. So we can buy that, but that's not on tonight. Tonight is Duke. Duke has done a lot of research on the lifts. And we are looking at a lift big enough to pick fire trucks up for fleet management in the future. So, and I believe the gentleman in the back there is with the lift company, so.
Mark Strange, he's with Choice Equipment.
So
Actually,
you want to talk about this, what went out, I guess, Duke, and then I'm assuming this is the one you want to go with?
Yeah, it's 2 lifts, and one of them being pretty good sized lift, 60,000 pound lift, and it's big enough to pick up, I think, ladder eight was the heaviest truck we got, which is about 50,000 pounds, and that's operational, correct? You went and had it.
Yeah, it's about, well, the girls big boy right now, 56.
Yeah.
So, yeah, operational is probably,
Yeah, 49 something. But anyway, this lift that we've got quotes on, is big enough to handle all that. And they're portable lifts. It's actually got a platform, and then the lifts you can take away and use them somewhere else in the garage. They're battery operated, with built-in chargers, so pretty nice equipment.
And if you have any questions on them, this is the expert here.
Yeah, these here are made out of Madison, Indiana, so they are made in the United States also. Like Duke said, they're able to be moved outside. If y'all got level slab outside, say there's whole shops filled up waiting on parts, and that's a common problem everywhere right now, waiting on parts or something. So you can take the 4 mobile columns out and lift up a single axle dump truck or whatever outside even also. So the other lift that Duke's looking about getting is a 20,000-pound lift, just a 2-post, and it'll be able to lift up single axle dump trucks, also ambulances and so on and so on, your cruisers or anything like that. So, and that'll actually even work for the EVs also. That's what GM is approved and Ford's approved for EVs, if you guys do go to that route within time.
All right, what questions do we have for Duke or Mark on these items?
Do they have a service agreement with them or anything like that?
We're a service company also, so our guys will be the ones servicing them. We're set up on a Kentucky State price contract on buying them and on service also. Most all the state facilities use those, all the DOTs throughout the whole state use those for doing inspections and their repairs now also.
And you said they were battery electric?
Yeah, what they are is like a deep cycle battery, like a boat battery. And they just have a single trickle charger on them. So like at the end of the night, they can roll them over and just plug them in and charge them that way.
So let y'all know, like he said, these are on state price contracts. We could have just went ahead and ordered them, but we wanted to be, get you all involved with it and have him here just to make sure everybody knows what's going on.
And these prices that you're seeing, it is installation as well as training.
So many prices.
I'm
I
sorry.
don't have any prices in front of me.
And I believe money-wise, when we did the budget, so we're certainly on the road committee, if I'm wrong, the one says 200 in there. The number that Codell threw in there, so.
Bit of warranty.
On the parts warranty and everything, there's different types of warranties on the parts and then the labor and everything like that. On the mobile columns, I think they're 5 years right now on the parts, and then the labor's extra. I can send it over to you, the warranty stuff, that way you guys got it all lined out completely and everything.
Squire Tracy.
Thank you. Thank you all for being with us. You referenced that 60,000-pound was portable. The 2 posts, those will be permanent, they'll be
Yeah, the 2
in
posts
place.
will be permanent, it'll be a 20,000-pound 2 post.
Okay.
Basically, this here's the 2 posts here, and this here's the mobile columns. If you can see there, it's got the runways, and you can actually pull these away and then just move the mobile columns and use them that way.
Did you get any feedback from the mechanics?
Yes, sure did.
Squire Blackburn. Sorry.
So on the, I don't know if these lifts, you have to take consideration in the floor and the concrete in the floor, and the engineers and architects have got that all figured out, and it meets all respect.
That's
Because
all been, yes.
we've got those bays at school, and we've got the lifts at school. It's a lot to it.
Yes.
Okay.
That's slab 8 inches, and I believe Mark said he
The 6 inch.
Yeah, he only needed 6, and then in the plans, it's actually, there's some additional footings under each one of these.
And well, if you got a mobile base, do you have a continuous footing underneath that span that you're gonna have those mobile bases moving, or?
Mobiles, you only need 6 inches for them anywhere.
Okay.
Anywhere you go, even like I said, you can take them outside. A lot of our bus garages throughout the state has them. Almost all the airports, Bluegrass has them. Lexington Fire Department has them.
Squire Sebastian.
Thank you, Judge. Just so everybody understands the commonality of that now. Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, anything else for Duke tonight? Mark, thank you for being with us. Hopefully you learned about Franklin County government a little bit while you were here. Duke, thank Tell all the guys thank you. Alrighty, we are going to jump into judge's report. I got a good bit here, so we're going to try to get going. We've had a lot of committee meetings since our last fiscal court meeting on the 15th. Information is also shared on Facebook and website. Anybody listening, we did have a finance committee we've talked about multiple times tonight on February 22nd. Our treasurer and grants administrator, in addition to the committee, was there. We will begin meeting with department heads to discuss their budgets for next year. Mitzi's getting all that scheduled, and I've looked ahead, and there's a lot of meetings set up. So I want to say to finance especially and everybody else that comes to committee meetings, thank you, because it's a lot, but I am hopeful, since last year was the first year together doing it, that this year will be a little bit smoother. And I think all the department heads have agreed to cut 15% off the top, so most of y'all are here, we appreciate that. See if they're paying attention back there. Strategic planning met on February 22nd. That's really talking about administrative code. I want to thank Squire Sebastian, Squire Tanner. We are looking at redoing the administrative code. I know we've talked about that for a couple months. So we're going to start diving into that ASAP, and those meetings will be scheduled. Road committee met this past Monday. As Duke was saying, the steel is up in the air. Things are going well. I do feel like the guys working on that project are showing up. They're putting good work in, and I think we're doing well there. Opioid Task Force met. We discussed the peer support specialist potentially would work at the jail to kind of help with some inmates that are getting out and getting back into society and things like that. The also big thing that we're talking about is transportation. I did not realize it's an issue for juveniles too who don't have transportation, who need detox and different things like that, which is totally new to me. So I want to thank Kelly, and I think Janet met with Bluegrass Cap Transit, so that they're working on some things there that we'll be bringing to the court at a later date. Solid Waste met yesterday. It was a room full when I walked in there. They had all kinds of people from the state and things like that. So Allie's really locking in on the 5-year plan. Squire Wisman was there. I think it went well. There's a lot of questions, but we are also starting to hopefully focus on the banning of single plastic bags and take out styrofoam, hopefully by the end of this year. So that is really something that we are focused on to help this community. Emergency Services met yesterday, and I apologize to Squire Blackburn and Squire Sebastian. My schedule somehow wasn't on there, so they met without me. But basically what we're talking about right now is we've talked as a group about an E911 board with the city, and so Jack has been talking to the city managers about getting a meeting set up. So the thought of that would be 2 representatives from us, 2 from them, and then 1 neutral party, be a 5-person committee moving forward that would meet quarterly. Grants awarded, DOG went ahead and released, I think, $1 million for the Farmdale Sanitation Interceptor project for the sewers out there. So what we're starting to realize in that project, some of the money we have to start spending. So they're really starting to kind of get to the nitty-gritty now to figure out where they could start, because what they don't want to do is start purchasing pumps and things like that that might not be hooked up for a year or 2 because of warranties. Division of Waste Management awarded a litter abatement grant for $37,940.96 for supporting of the Trash for Cash program. I think Andrew has a little picture up there. We went to February 16th, Allie, Squire Wisman, and Emery Rosen, who's on our task force toward the Shelby County recycling facility. It's a pretty impressive facility. Somebody had a vision, but it is still a little costly. But that was a good tour. We learned a lot. I also met with Dr. Stewart Home, and we discussed the family weekend on May 17th. I believe that starts at 9:30. So anybody, hopefully from the court, that would like to come, we would appreciate it. It's always a good thing. I know Squire Sebastian goes there. Yeah. So KMCA Legislative Day was February 21 at the Capitol. Most of the court was there. I believe there's some pictures there. We were able to meet with Eric Graham, Representative Pfister, and Senator Williams. Had some good conversations. That today. I had my monthly interview with the plant board on cable around 10. This year, we talked about the Easter egg hunt. I'm going to ask Squire Sebastian, would she like to say a couple things about the Easter egg hunt on March 23rd? Because you have been working on that and we appreciate it.
Yeah, we've had just tremendous response from the community. We, again, have our fifth-year headline sponsor, Traditional Bank, as our lead sponsor. We've got a secondary sponsor this year, State Farm, Jason Dunn. Through their generosity to the community, we'll have more than 15,000 eggs. We've brought in Yes Arts to have a special sensory-friendly area for egg hunting. I always invite the steward home, and we always have a separate area for them. We're working on the sensory-friendly area so that families can come and participate, and everyone in the family will participate in that area. I want to thank every member of this court very much for funding those sensory-friendly eggs. I can't thank you enough for personally investing in our community. People in our community don't know how much you personally do, but I want to just give you a shout out for that very much here today. We are going to have the Paul Sawyer Public Library. They will be back and they will be doing a obstacle course as well as a craft area for families. The Imagination Library of Franklin County will be there signing up families to receive books through the Dolly Parton Foundation for free, and that's a wonderful, wonderful thing. All of the activities, the Sheriff's Office will have its mounted police unit there. And certainly always want to thank our collaborative partner in the Sheriff's Office for all that they have done. They have ordered the eggs, received the eggs. There is so much work that they do on the back end side that people don't understand and see, and we appreciate them every year coming in. The fire department's going to have some fleet vehicles there. The road department's actually going to have some fleet vehicles there, so it's a good opportunity for individuals from our community to interact with the staff and understand a little bit more about what they do and give them a public-facing opportunity. So those are some very positive aspects of this event. I also have something that I hope I'll be able to announce with that in the coming week about some other folks who'll be able to be there, but I won't know at this point. And this year, all of those events that we discussed are going to be on site for free. We have had a number of people in the past wanting to know if there were any vendors that were going to be on site for food or drinks. So we've been able to work with the Athletic Association at Frankfort High, and they're going to actually be on site. And they will have bottled water, popcorn, and I think some type of sleeved, like icy, and they will be on sale for $2 or more. And all of those proceeds are going to go back into the athletics, 100% of the proceeds. And Franklin County's Key Club will be there doing face painting. KSU's Kiwanis group, as well as Frankfort Kiwanis, will be on hand assisting with the egg hunt. Andrew has set up an opportunity for you to go ahead and register your family ahead of time so that we don't have a backlog in the registration area. And it wouldn't be an event without saying something to our Lakeview Park staff. So Charlie Lewis and the staff always do a phenomenal job of showcasing the best of what Lakeview Park is now and what Lakeview Park will be for our community in this event. So I can't thank them enough for all that they do.
Yeah, thank you, Squire. Also on Cable 10, I took Amy Snow with me. I think we all know Amy Snow from the Wanda Joyce Foundation. She had some exciting news. They are actually moving into Thornhill School. They're going to be renting the basement out. So they're working hand in hand with NCFL, the National Center for Family Literacy. That I want to say thank you to this court for supporting early on. So that's exciting. They're also working on, there's some people that are working on starting a Boys and Girls Club in Frankfort because we don't have one. We're one of the only communities, only one of the two states in the country who don't have one, so for being the capital. So that's all exciting. Next, Allie wanted me to let let you all know, Saturday, March 2nd from 2 to 3. They're going to have a plugging across the bluegrass. So, Mitzi said I had to say this. If you don't know what plugging is, it's the Swedish phrase, plocka up. That's what it means, plocka up. So, there it is. So, Frankfurt Striders are going around downtown picking up trash, things like that. I also want to say thank you to Alec, because she has really done a great job with community outreach. She is getting back into the schools and teaching them about recycling and composting. This is a very important one here. I hope all the magistrates and anybody watching can come to Tuesday, March 5th. It's the 60th anniversary of March on Frankfurt. It was MLK March. It will be starting at the Capital City Museum at 10:45. We'll walk from there up Capitol Avenue, and then there's a ceremony, I believe, at the Capitol. So really hoping everybody can show up for that. It will be a big deal. And then last but not least, our 2023 audit is complete, and we had a clean audit with 0 findings. So I'd like to thank our treasurer for that, because she keeps us out of trouble, and also all of our department heads for a great job that they do throughout the year to make sure we are all in compliance. So that's what I have. So it's been busy, but it's all good. Got a lot of things going on in this community, so I appreciate everybody getting a look. I'll get with you. Okay, we'll look at it. Oh, they're pre-scheduled, I think, so we can look at that. Yeah, we'll know, yeah. Okay, that's judge's report. So now we're going to jump in. Anybody have any questions on the minutes from our regular meeting on February 15th, 2024, Squire Wisman?
Just a couple of things. Anytime this body gets together, anything we discuss, in my opinion, from the moment we meet to the moment we adjourn, really should be reflected in the minutes. And I know we typically only put the voting record, and this time we do have one additional element that we gave Robert Hewitt some directive about the district overlay there. But there were a couple other things in that meeting that we directed that I don't see reflected that I want to be sure are in there, and maybe it'd be best just to kind of table this until next time we could add the exact language. But I brought up a directive to ask the fire department to take ownership of the fire hydrants on county property and have those inspected regularly. The task force meeting for the jail to be directed to be scheduled. Request for information about the jail for that, and there were a couple other things in addition to what we asked Robert to have. And I'm just concerned that we're having that happen more commonly, sort of in our discussion. There are directives that we're not actually putting anywhere except for our recorded videos. I don't know how we can start doing that a little better, or being more cognizant to put things beyond just what is our voting record, any kind of directives we put in the minutes.
Your thoughts on the court on that? Sebastian.
I'll agree with that. During the last court, talk about it that extensively. The court would give some direction, and things would be followed up on, and everybody would say, well, if you go back to the minutes, it's not in there. And it's critical, and that's how tasks and work that the court deems appropriate sometimes get lost. So I would agree with that. And so we revised several minutes before to include that kind of thing. So.
Okay, so we'll table this then, and we'll look back over those and go from there.
Just like today, we kind of got into some of the business presentations and things. We're getting that more often. I just sort of think anytime we get together from the moment we start to the time we adjourn, even the items we discuss,
what you think should be in the minutes too.
Thank you.
You can always make a motion and second it in a minute.
I'm sorry?
You can always just pass a little simple resolution that just requested if it passed, it'd be in a minute. You want me to do it?
That's something like the fire hydrant. I haven't had time.
But he can make a motion and
Things like that, so I just want to make sure.
to do it. If it passed, it'd be in a minute.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's fine. Anyway, you want to do it.
Yeah, let's just send them in. We'll look them up. No, I appreciate that, Squire. spend the night with us. We appreciate that, Sheriff. But it's not too often we get to see your smiling face this late at night.
Sure. I appreciate it. No, when we took the jail on, we agreed not to complain about it and to make it a better place. So this is one of the ways we can do that is to buy a vehicle before we leave with money that's already in their budget. Matt's here if you got any questions about their fleet. He has the current list and needs and so on. So I'll answer anything that I can.
All right. Questions? Tracy?
So the vehicle is in the budget to be purchased? I understand if we move money from the deputy line, we would have money buy a car, but Amy and Ron thinks will be extra money. Is that right, Ron? I'll say that right.
I've never been here in person to discuss this, and I think we're gonna have access. Deputy line,
Squire Sebastian.
And this will be used for transport? Yes. Or I guess whatever the new jailer thinks, but yes, we're buying it to set up for a safe transport vehicle. How many transport vehicles do they have? We'll get Matt up here for that, so I don't let's go down there.
if you want to get technical, we have two 15-passenger vans and a 23
take a look at this and have it at our next meeting. Surely 2 weeks isn't gonna kill us on that.
Next meeting, March 20th.
That's 3 weeks away anyway.
That's right, 3 weeks.
Go ahead, Squire.
Isn't the jail budget need to be submitted to the fiscal court by April the 1st?
Yes, there's a KRS.
So then, has there been any thought to adding whatever vehicles you might need in the future to be added or requested for in
Yeah,
that
I
budget?
actually said next year we need to buy a maintenance truck. Of course, I won't be here in the next year probably. I mean, you see, of course, I won't be here in the next year probably. I mean, you see.
The sheriff's trying to get us in a better spot than we come in for, because obviously we come in and 3 vehicles needed to be taken. And he's trying to get us in a better fleet position like he is, having several new vehicles in the county and just not having this thrown upon them all at once.
Meeting too was getting a list of all vehicles, because you're looking at something, going over something I don't have.
I have a list that I got from Mitzi.
Okay.
So I can send out a list.
And then can you put beside each one what they're used for? Obviously, it sounds like you got 2 or 3 transport vehicles.
Yes, sir.
Thoughts? You want to table it, or?
A bit of a plan. I completely trust Chris and what he's been doing with the vehicles, but I'd like to sort of figure out where we're going to need for the next 4 or 5 years for the jail, and we haven't really got it.
So one of the things that was discussed in the few meetings that the Strategic Planning Committee had during the last administration was this very issue.
Yeah.
So we would not get into this. And we're here. So we need to review that as a whole. Again, pick that back up, because that date is probably 2 years old now,
Yeah.
at least 3 probably, all the equipment that I had asked for at that time.
Okay.
So we can go back through that and start that process as across the board
Yeah.
in a strategic way.
Squire Blackburn.
Yeah, well, I want to thank you, Sheriff. You've always done a great job of making sure that the office has the fleet that it needs, and the citizens, and that if we do the 3 weeks, that it's going to be okay.
When, I don't know the deadline is given.
I think an issue, when we discussed it earlier, was the availability of vehicles. Right now, there's some Durangos.
So, I mean, if I'm sitting there looking at the sheriff who's managed his fleet better than anybody in county government, I'm okay with it, but I'll do whatever y'all want to do.
I just know if we don't buy cars, we can wait 2 weeks, 6 months. You see, there's a bunch of junk, so that's
Yeah.
how we got in the shape we're in.
Yeah.
Should be buying a car every year, I think.
Yeah.
How many of those cars are assigned out that go home at night?
There's assigned out to go home at night. Major King drives hers home. I drive mine when I'm on call, stuff like that, but none of those cars leave the jail otherwise.
And Ron kept his car because he's temporary.
So you don't have any driving to Berea and
Richmond.
Absolutely not. Sheriff wouldn't allow it.
All right, thoughts? I got. Go ahead.
I personally would like to see you look at the whole fleet in general and see if you could do it the way you do yours. Let's not piecemeal it. Let's see what those vans are worth. Let's see what everything's worth, and go from there. And the ones that aren't being used, or the ones that are just being used to make a gopher run to go get paper plates or something, I mean, is there not another vehicle that the Ford Explorer or the Escape that's driven from work to home? Can that car not be jumped into and drove to Lexington to pick up this or that? But I think we just need to, like you do.
Right,
we
my
just need-
thought is buy this transport car, you have 2 good ones. Next year, you got a truck, his truck's probably worth 20 grand. You wait 3 or 4 more years, it's gonna be worth 2 grand, you know? So you take 40 grand plus his and you buy a nice service truck in next year's budget, not this year. That's just kind of my long term.
So we're gonna table it?
I'm fine with table. I mean, obviously, I'd love for you, like I said, I'd love for you to look at the whole thing and come back then. It sounds like there's a bunch of them just been up there sitting. So,
If we
Squire
ta-
Tanner, what do you want to do? You want to table it or get it? We're kind of split right now, I think.
If we table it, we need to table it for a time certain, and then come back next meeting or the next month.
What was that, Squire?
that's a possibility.
I said if we're gonna lose it if we table it, we don't need to table it.
I can
Is
tell
that-
you, I just bought 13 of them, so I don't know how many's left, but they are selling.
I mean, do you wanna take that chance? That's my,
Of the 13, how many,
Durango's.
yeah, how many are we waiting on?
Mine are at the upfitter shop over in my garage right now, so we'll have ours out in probably 6 weeks.
So I guess my question is are we going to put any of these up for sale immediately while we're looking at making a potential purchase? Because it sounds like some of these, we need to just move on. I mean, we're paying insurance and they're sitting on a lot where other things could be. I mean, I guess maybe I want to take one step back. Can someone help me understand the purview of the jail task force? It seems like they haven't seen this, they haven't seen other things. So I'm not sure if they're seeing one thing or 16 things, or, it would make, usually a task force in my history in government was put together for one or two items to complete, and then the work of the task force was done. So if it is all-encompassing of the jail, that would help me understand how things come forward, but maybe there's something I'm not understanding probably.
Yeah, I mean, typically, I think the vision of the task force when we first put it together was because we temporarily took it over, you know what I mean? And so we're trying to just oversee with the sheriff's department the best we can to do improvements to make it better. So when we hand it off to the new jailer, and that's an elected position, that he or she will run it. So for me, this task force is set up in the interim while we are kind of helping run the jail.
And we did email this to the task force, so they seen it. I mean, we didn't talk in person, but it's not like we didn't know.
And there was some comment back about, could we pull together a meeting potentially and look at this and review it, but we didn't get to the point. But I did ask at their last meeting to have a meeting scheduled next week on the 5th, but I was going to bring up this evening to move that back to the 4th because of the other conflicts on the 5th, but.
So I guess I'm trying to put together, so the vehicle that the court provided funds to purchase in FY '23, which wound up being that 22 Ford Transit Connect wagon, which was some kind of van, that cost $25,750. And without court knowledge or approval, it was moved to another county agency. Surely, there's some vehicle currently being used for transport, and clearly whomever participated in that earlier discussion to remove and replace the one vehicle for another, we need to come up with some solution for that. I guess now that van has been placed on a surplus list to be sold, and we have other identified expenses that we're consistently getting, like medical overages, lots of maintenance of the jail that we have existing bills for. So I'm trying to balance, and we have commissary funds that are being used for the benefit of the inmate, and certainly transport is for the benefit of the inmate. However, if the van that was purchased with commissary funds doesn't have the cage, we can't use that for transport. So I'm not sure who's involved in making decisions like that, but I think we
This
need
goes
to.
back.
Yes, sir.
This goes back prior
Yes,
to
sir.
us.
But I guess the point I'm trying to get to is we need to be more mindful when we are making these decisions, which was the discussion of
Yeah.
strategic planning. You were there,
Yeah.
you heard me clearly, and it never went anywhere. So again, I think there are other groups that are thinking along the same lines here, so I think
Let's pull it.
let's,
So hopefully we'll be there in 3 weeks. That's all we can do.
I can tell you this too, on the 22 van that the county bought for the jail. I was working at the upfitter that it was brought to at the time. The vehicle, they don't make a cage for it.
Yeah,
The
because
vehicle was
of the
purchased without
airbags.
talking to the upfitter.
You're right. There
And
was,
there was no page for it, and there was no rear seats.
And that was just a
absolutely, and that gets
mistake.
back to that
Yeah.
being mindful about what we're doing. You're exactly right. I mean, you're 100% on it.
What are our vehicles currently outfitted for that are able to transport?
The 2 express vans and the 2 Crown Vics with high miles that I wouldn't recommend taking out
I
of
can't believe
county.
there's any Crown Vics on the road still.
Sheriff still got one.
To show these empties.
But unfortunately, this has been, I'm gonna say neglect, because, I mean, that's an old fleet up there. I mean, it's just,
It's very old, and a lot of it was handed down, so it's had its share of hard miles as well.
And you all been putting out fires since you've been there, and you're getting to the fleet now. And I totally understand priority in that.
And I will say, at least in my involvement on the task force, I feel like it has been very much just getting that facility so that it's not going to fail the next day. And I finally feel, just as of last meeting, that we're finally wrapped up that kind of element up, and we can start tackling some of these other issues. You know, staffing was the big one in the building, and now we can look at the auxiliary elements, fencing, fleet, training opportunities and some other things.
okay, we'll get a meeting, we'll go over it. We'll get it. Thank you, guys. Ron, are you gonna talk about this next one?
No, I didn't do good.
No, you did well. It's an important issue.
What we're asking for is a mental health, or wellness program. It is based exactly on the program that the that Sheriff Quire has put in place at our office. He's being a leader in the law enforcement community by identifying the problems that we have in mental health. He's changing the culture of law enforcement, which if any of y'all have ever been around any of us old policemen, we're pretty set in our ways, so it's a big deal. The person that we would like to be associated with is Dr. Blake Jones. He's a retired professor from the University of Kentucky. He's been in private practice for over 30 years. He specializes in law enforcement and first responders, police, fire, and EMS. He has extensive education and experience. There's really no one quite like him that I've ever met. I've worked with him back before any of these programs really took root, when the FOP was started to try to get some of this stuff going. I think in your packet you have the explanation of what we're asking for. This money would also, we would ask you to move that out of the deputy's line item. There's going to be well over $100,000 in there that is unspent, even at our crazy overtime rate. We just can't hire enough people to spend it, so that's what we're asking. I'd be glad to answer any questions that you might have. I did one last thing to add. Chief Depp was going to make this presentation tonight, and he has a conflict. He's speaking at the KSP Academy. So he asked me to share that since the Sheriff's Office has started this program, where you basically have a checkup like you would with your regular doctor, your medical doctor every year, you have a checkup with a mental health professional every year. So since the Sheriff's Office has started that, there are about 11 people into it. The chief said that in his 30 years in law enforcement, no one had ever asked to see a mental health professional, and we've had at least 2 of our officers, of our deputies or employees, I don't know who they are, say that, we would like to participate in this, so it's a big thing to us, so.
All right. Go ahead, Squire.
I'm so excited, I want to jump out of my seat. Number one, that this is a thing now, and number 2, he is awesome. Like, you could not choose anybody better. I mean, you just could not. So, congratulations, and thank you.
Squire Tracy.
Thank you, Judge. You and I had a conversation earlier, and I spoke to Squire Dykus as well. I appreciate you all bringing this. Sheriff Quire, thank you for leading the way. But what I'd like to see is this opened up. You referenced first responders. We've got firemen that arrive on scene, and they don't know what they're arriving on, and they, everybody's dealing with their own issues. So personally, I would like this to be open to all county staff.
The chief and I literally just talked about that before the meeting started, so I'll be glad to get with him and to get this done. It's something that I'm pretty passionate about. I mean, it's much needed and well overdue.
I agree.
And Judge, you're aware of this, you sat on the committee with me. We discussed this in personnel during the last term, making this available to all county employees, not specifically one department. And again, it moved forward, but I think this court has a very real opportunity to move that forward.
We'd actually talked about potentially hiring a full-time position for all county employees to kind of deal with mental health and things like that, but.
I will just tell you, not to be out of order, but it has to be somebody that works with first responders or they won't participate.
Gotcha.
And that's why this particular person is so critical. Because he has a special understanding of first responders that I don't know of any other therapists that do. Maybe a couple.
This was the name that was given to us previously that we discussed before in that, making it available to everyone in the county, because I think that's important.
Because the jail's a jail, do we want to go ahead and approve this, because that's not going to affect anything, and then have a meeting, or Ron can help facilitate it to see what he would charge, because obviously that's going to be different budgets.
I would look at it as professional services that.
I was going to say.
That's what
you
you don't have to bid it out.
Yeah.
It's a negotiable deal, we understand.
And if this is not a sole source, so we need to
Yeah, but we can look
be
at it.
cognizant of all those
But does
things.
anybody have any problem with us going ahead and approving, so we can get?
Well, that was one of my concerns, if we could negotiate something that was more broader for all of our employees, then we, again, this is under a $10,000 line item for this one, right? But we might have some complications, and we may need to look at it a little differently. I'm all for moving forward and doing it, although I'm concerned this isn't much of a contract, and I'm just wanting to see if we had something more in place, if this is sort of an addendum to the
I would defer to the county
jails,
attorney,
but,
he reviewed it, so.
I mean, I reviewed it. It's an agreement, he's going to provide these services, and we're going to pay him for the services. That's the basis of the contract.
If you're talking about mental health services for all employees, is that what you all are talking about on top of this?
Or at least our first responders and.
Well, so-
We have fire employees that roll up on a scene where
Right.
a vehicle may be caught on fire, and there's an entire family in there.
Absolutely.
That is traumatic.
It is.
My daughter's a fireman. That is
Yes.
a traumatic.
It is very traumatic,
It's
absolutely.
traumatic.
So you need a trauma therapist for that, which is exactly what he does. If you're talking about, if you're just talking about opening it up to all county employees, that's something different, and you don't need this person for
Right,
that.
I understand.
So those are just different things. I just want to make sure I understand what
Yeah.
what you're saying.
Yep. So are we okay with just approving this so the jail can get started on it, and then we'll have a conversation, maybe the chief can have a conversation with him as far as the fire department, and then he.
Hey, I'm all in. I want to make sure that we do go forward with making this service available to all the first responders and anybody else who might need it.
Ron,
Which
are you
might be
okay with
me.
working with the chief on that, maybe?
Oh, absolutely.
Set a meeting
Yes,
up.
be glad to.
Well, Ms. Squire Sebastian brought up a good point. If we decide to expand operations and we already have a pre-existing relationship that's not been bid or something here, how would that work to expand? Can somebody walk me through that to?
It's a professional
And maybe
service.
someone
You don't
here
have to
knows
bid
if
it.
there are more firms in this space. We don't want to
don't
do
know.
anything that ultimately penalizes, where I'm going with this, that someone who's had a good working relationship with us because of some bid thing that may come up later. I only raise it for that
I
issue.
understand very
You
much.
understand?
I do. yeah.
Stand clearly.
I think I probably should have said early on, and this is my error, that what I'm proposing tonight is from March 1st to June 30. So it is an ending time. It is my intention to put it in the budget for next year because it needs to be ongoing. And so this gives us a little bit of a jump start. Having seen the effectiveness of it at the sheriff's office and seeing a couple things at the jail, it became clear to me that we need to do it. And in my opinion, we should do it as soon as possible.
This is based off this individual seeing 40 officers, is that correct? Obviously, I don't believe
Yes.
40 officers.
Yes, so when I was talking to Dr. Jones about that, we have 43 positions. As we know, we don't ever have that many people. Right now, I think this morning we have 35. So the way that the billing would go is it would be invoiced monthly. So we wouldn't pay $5,000 for 40 officers. We would pay a prorated amount, which is $125 per officer, however many actually are seen. So in the perfect world, we would get all 35 of us to be in there. If we don't, we're not going to pay for anybody that doesn't get seen. So that's, I don't know if that makes it clear or not.
No, it does. again, I just want to make sure that we don't, that this doesn't get lost in regards to other first responders. And again, hopefully one day that maybe the group between the sheriff's office, the jail, the firemen, again, all first responders can come together under one umbrella and be seen and so forth. But again, I think it's very important that we do it for all county employees.
Ron, would this, can you walk me through how this would operate? My thought is somewhat making a mandatory visit for all of our staff members, because we know if you self-opt in, some folks are just never going to, but if they're there in the chair and they have the opportunity to talk, they may benefit. How would that?
So I'm going to mimic what the sheriff did. His role there, he led by example. It is mandatory that you attend, but the sheriff and the chief deputy were the first two people that participated in the program. So that's what I would do at the jail, and it would be required that the employee would be paid. We would pay them just like it was part of their workday. And because staffing is such an issue to us, we have to bring the mental health professional to us, so it would take place at the jail, but it would be in a setting away from others, so you'd have some privacy. And my hope would be to make it part of the culture, that it's just something that we do, like we do our annual in-service hours. You just get and it's done in other agencies at the federal level. We're just trying to bring it kind of local. But that's the way it would look. You would be required to go, at least for the initial, I don't want to call it assessment or evaluation, but the initial meeting, and just kind of get a feel where everybody is. There's some hours built in there for ongoing, if a person needs some ongoing things, more than one session. PTSD is good, it's one of the things that we all probably suffer from, and it's not a lifetime diagnosis. You can have it and get it treated and get over it, and you can get it again. So it's, he is, Dr. Jones, very well trained in these things, but that's how I see it.
Okay, thank you. I've been very cognizant for a number of years in talking to all of our first responders, particularly in talking to some of our EMS providers about the situations they go into and how big of a strain that takes on them to then turn it off and go directly into your home life at the end of your shift is really difficult. We ask a lot of these people, so I commend everybody for trying to take steps in this direction and making it as easy as possible and not part of your life that you're giving up somehow is critical, I think, to making it successful.
Squire Tracy.
And just to circle back and thank you for working with Chief Brewer, and hopefully we can get something or have something on the next meeting for the fight.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Ron, thank you. Alrighty. Amy, are you with us? No. Yeah, Amy's. You with us? Amy?
Yeah.
Amy's not feeling well, so she's via.
Yes, Judge, can you hear me?
We can now, yes, thank you. Good evening. We hope you're feeling better. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you. I'm sorry I couldn't be there tonight.
That's okay, you're missing all the fun.
I know. So this next agenda item, the Fiscal Court keeps a collateral agreement with our banks to guarantee deposits for amounts greater than $250,000. And this is an update to an agreement that we have with West Banco.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to ask Mr. County Attorney, you've looked over this, does everything look okay to you?
I looked over it, everything looks good.
Okay, questions for County Attorney or Amy on this agreement? Squire Wisman.
The only thing I have a question is the date on the collateral agreement is assigned for December 14th of last year. Is there any need to update, or are we outside of a contractual time period, or I just want to be sure?
Max?
I think that's when they probably met with their bank, their board of directors. But if you look at the letter, it does cover March 1st, 2024 through February 29th of 2029.
Just want to be sure.
All right, thank you, Amy. All right, we'll move to the next one, please.
So in the next agenda item, if you'll remember in December, we signed a contract with Cash Best 3+1 to help us recognize what funds that we have that have greater potential for investment holdings. And CashVest, they used our banking transactions for all 2023 to give a number for our working capital. And anything above that, we can invest. So in the initial meeting with CashVest, and you have that report for that full year in your packet, but CashVest contacted some of the local banks, so really all of the local banks, and asked for a rate quote request. And from that, my recommendations are to do an 18-month for $3 million with traditional, a 5-month for $3 million with independence, and a 3-month CD with West Bango for $5 million. And that last one is ARPA money. Didn't want to do anything more than the 3 months, just simply because we need to start using that money. As you know, that money has to be obligated by the end of this year, December 31st. We have to be under contract in order to use that money, and then it has to be used up by December 2026. So those are my recommendations.
Amy, I just want to say thank you. I know this has been a big deal for you. You've talked about this all year. I appreciate the court, approving going to CashVest. I met with Amy last week. She feels a lot more comfortable knowing what we should keep and what we can invest. Any comments or questions for Amy?
I got one. Can I go back, Judge, to the last document? Through February 29, that year's only got 28 days.
That is a leap
You
year.
want to change it.
It's leap year.
It's leap year. There's.
Yeah, 2029.
2029,
Wow.
it's only got 28, I believe.
Good catch.
Check it and see.
Say again?
24. 28 will be a leap year again.
Yeah, I think it's
28 's a
28,
leap year,
but
24 's a leap year.
Huh?
Yeah.
This year's leap year.
It's every
28 's a
4
leap year.
years is a leap year, so there is I'm sure it was a fat finger, just a mistake on the 29, but
Yeah,
that
it's
can
only
be
28
fixed
days
quickly.
in 29.
But it can be addressed.
I'm sure it can be. I can white that out right here.
All right,
Make that change, please.
any questions or comments on this one for Amy?
No, I think it's good.
All right, Amy, keep moving. Budget transfers.
Perfect.
So this budget transfer was requested from Ron Wyatt. And I guess we probably need to change that because I do have a vehicle for $45,000. So if we want to strike through that and just do the $10,000 for the Compass Center. So it'll just be a $10,000 amount.
Okay? Any questions for Amy on that one?
We're going to strike through the vehicle increase in the budget for 45,000 and leave it at the 10,000 for
Yep, so
registration, conferences, and training.
whenever you vote, I'll say approves budget transfers as amended. Right, clerk? You get that?
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions for Amy on budget transfers? All righty, last one, Amy. Treasury
And
report.
then the last one that I have is the revenue and expense report as of February 23rd.
Judge, give us just a second, because we had some additional papers added to us, right? That you're sure. Richard, this is sure.
But not for this payment.
Okay, yeah, I got that on there. I'm not one, never worried about that.
Go ahead, Squire, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I
Thank
just
you,
looked
Judge.
at that because I knew it was
Madam
good.
Treasurer, have you heard anything in regard to the distilled spirits revenue line item? Had any communication about that at this point?
Well, just the legislation that was passed and how it will be phased out over the years. That's the only thing that I have on.
I'm sorry, I'm meaning from the remitter to us. Have you heard anything from the remitting entity to us about when we might expect it? Yeah.
When we will be in receipt.
Yep.
I believe we're going to see that in March.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions on the treasurer's report? Are y'all ready?
Judge, one thing, we've got an expense line for our planning and zoning that we've brought up a couple times that is 130% of the budget already for engineering services.
Yep.
With a $11,000 overage effectively at the moment. Can we look at that? And
Most of it's because of the survey we had to do at Duckers.
I realize.
Yeah.
And we have done an amendment, we've done the first reading to amend that budget on, and the second reading will be at next court.
I'm just wondering if we can get an estimation of what else we're going to incur with the 6 months left of the, 3 or 4 months left of the year and spring coming up, and I just expect that line item is going to go up significantly.
It's going to keep moving because there's so much going on right now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'll make note of that. Squire Tanner, do you have something?
I do, but I'll ask Amy about it when she gets back to work, even better. It's actually under the registration conference and training for the magistrates. I think there was $2,000 a piece in there, and there's only $3,000 left. And I thought we were not to halfway the last I checked, but I'm sure it's right. I just want to know where it went, actually.
Amy, when you get back, can you look at that a little bit for us? Thank you.
I have a spreadsheet of everybody's training that was budgeted for 2,000 apiece. I can send out an update email tomorrow of how much y'all have left.
You might do that for each individual person, because I know I'm way over.
Yeah.
I thought
and that's how she's been keeping it. It's per each magistrate or,
Each person gets their own.
Exactly, yeah.
I will.
Perfect, thank you, Squire. Any other questions? All righty, since Kim piped up, we're gonna go on to Amy, thank you very much. Hope you feel better.
Thank you.
All righty, Kim, payment of claims. Any questions for Kim? Oh, Squire Tracy.
Just
You got a fast finger tonight, you know that, Squire?
I tried. The Federal Signal Corporation for outdoor warning signs, is that a new one? Is that a new placement, or is that just a?
That's still the new one that's getting replaced. They're almost complete with it.
Thank you.
Judge, the Hayashi KBI incentive credit, I'm wondering if we can just get a little breakdown on that.
The tax
36,000.
abatements. Yeah, do you know about that, Kim?
How much
I'm
is
not,
there
for
outstanding?
I don't have enough information to provide that. I'll have to get with Tax or Amy to give you the information for you.
They have an arrangement with the other corporations that if they meet a certain threshold, we have, and they have to submit paperwork.
Yeah.
Now, what the trigger of the threshold is, it's always in our audit. I don't have that on me to have the exact detail, but they've clearly met the threshold because they have to send that paperwork in to Ox Tax to
Yeah,
get
and
this back.
most of them don't meet the threshold, that's
They
why we
don't.
never see them. This is the
We
first one I've
very
seen.
rarely
Oh,
have-
first one
that's ever done.
Yeah,
We very rarely,
which is a good thing, that means
we haven't
they're
had
doing
many.
well.
And they always have an end date.
Yeah,
So I can't quote the end date, but that's in the audit.
Just would like
That
to-
detail would be in the audit for you, available there, quickly.
Kim, can you put that on your list to get with Summer, and we'll get that to the magistrates?
Yes.
Please, thank you.
And Judge?
Go ahead, Squire.
Just one other thing, jail fund bills, we have I brought this up a couple times, we have a purchase for styrofoam trays. You've signed an order to eliminate styrofoam.
I'm signing it next week.
Okay.
I talked to the jailer, they've pivoted, and
Fantastic.
by next week, they'll have all the new materials in place. So, and he was the last one I had to talk to. We talked to fire. So what we're gonna do is sign an executive order to no longer have styrofoam in county offices. So, yeah, so we're trying to lead by example.
Yeah.
You know, we want to do all these things with single-use plastic and things like that. So we figured it would be best if we start with our organization. So, yeah, so that was an older bill, but he said actually to go to the recycled trays was the biggest thing, Squire. It was only gonna be a $500 difference for the whole year, which is great.
Great.
What you got there, Kelly? All right, any other questions for Kim on the bills? Alrighty, seeing none. Authorization to go into closed session per KRS 61.8101F. Discussions or hearings which might lead to the appointment, discipline, or dismissal of an individual employee.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. Andrew, please make sure we're in closed session.
Mentioned that great cross in Scott County. Next one, if you like up-tempo basketball, you want to go back and watch.
we are back into open session now. Next agenda item is to reappoint for the Elkhorn Water District. Anybody have any questions on this appointment? Mr. Tracy, would you like to say anything? Mr. Cardraker, looking around. All righty. Yeah. All righty. Any other business?
Are we other business now?
Yeah.
Last week I proposed, offered an order to have the fire department, the jail fall under the purview of Fiscal Court, and Max offered to help me draw that up in a resolution, and he did, and it's perfect to what we want. He researched it, did a great job, referred to the KRS. And it might be repetitious, but it doesn't matter how many times you say something, it still needs to be said. And so I have what he sent me, and I want to make that motion at the proper time.
Would you be okay to, if we put it on the next agenda, and then because we can all have it, we haven't seen it, right?
We've got copies for everybody.
Oh, okay, is everybody good with it?
He got it in our hands.
Oh, okay, there you go.
I'm going to give this everybody now.
Okay.
I would like to give this to Kim so she wouldn't make any mistakes.
Max, what do you want to do?
Exactly what he wrote.
Need to make a motion for it, probably have a signature line on it. I didn't have a signature line because I didn't know if that was the language that y'all exactly wanted. So I guess if y'all want to do that with the addition of a signature line, but.
So we'll put it on the agenda for portion?
Yeah, we have to amend the agenda.
Yep. Okay.
So I'm going to amend the agenda to include that order.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Put it on the
Do you
agenda.
want to read the?
Well, I don't know if we have
Do you
to
need to
read
read
it or not, do we?
During the voting session, you want me to read it now?
Sure.
I thought we were in open session, but it's.
There we are.
It's just, we didn't.
He meant
just-
voting.
Voting, I'm sorry, I'm a little tired.
You said voting.
Yeah, I did.
Just
It's just
if anybody
kinda
wanted to
muddled.
discuss.
Yeah, it's a little
You're
mumbly.
tired.
Yeah,
We've been here a while.
yeah, long day. Thank you, Clark.
That's exactly as Max read
Okay.
it, wrote it, whatever.
Okay. All right, any other business? Mr. Tracy.
Thank you. We are all aware that Senator Williams filed SB 220, known as the Frankfurt Plant Board Bill, on February the 20th. It's my understanding that the following entities publicly opposed the bill. Those entities being the Kentucky League of Cities and the Kentucky County Judge Executive Association. Do we as a body need to reaffirm our support for the current makeup of the Frankfurt Plant Board? And do we need to contact KACO and the Kentucky Magistrates Commissioners Association and ask that they stand with us and join us in opposing SB 220?
Fine to send a letter to both of them.
I'd say yes.
I talked to, actually, KACO called me yesterday, and I told them, they knew that we had signed that letter and things like that, and so we had a great conversation, but I think to be consistent, I'm fine with writing a letter to both the Magistrate Association and KACO, if y'all are okay with that.
I think so. I would like to see that happen.
Judge, I'd like to further that by asking you to direct our lobbyist to oppose that on our behalf.
Yeah, and he has been, if anybody asks, but yeah.
We will not
I can
formally
make
give that direction as a board or as a body.
That's fine. Thank you. Okay, Squire Sebastian.
Thank you, Judge. I just want to bring everybody's attention to March 9th. The Kiwanis, of which I'm a member, is having a pancake breakfast. All the proceeds always for that go back into funding community activities for our kids and our youth. So if you get an opportunity to come out, it starts at 7:30 and goes to 11, and it's just based on a personal donation. Second thing is for a couple of years, I have approached our delegation at the Kentucky General Assembly about filing some legislation that would appropriately place the financial responsibility on a registered owner of watercraft for removal if they abandon that vehicle on waterway banks or in bodies of water. So again, I brought that up, and so I would like to think maybe it's important on this body to take that up as an action to demonstrate to our legislators that it's important to us. We know here in Franklin County, we've had abandoned watercraft. Had it in my area, it's floated down. It's an issue here, and it's an issue that, at the time when it came into my awareness, I reached out to the Kentucky River Authority, Transportation Cabinet Division of Water, Department for Fish and Wildlife, and no entity had a pool of resources to assist our community or others with this problem. And we know that, there are expenses to it that came to us that were unbudgeted. We shared those expenses with the city. It causes issues because hazardous fluids leak out into the bodies of water. It negatively impacts our water quality, aquatic species. It also causes navigation issues, not only for, pleasure boaters, but for others. So it is an issue. And here in Franklin County, we have 161,662 miles of inland waterways here in Franklin County alone. And that is a critical issue. So again, I've worked on it for 2 years. I'm hoping that it sees the light of day at some point, because our legislative delegation said, yes, we plan to work on that. We plan to get something drafted. So today's the last day to drop some bills, so we'll see where that goes. But
I felt good after we met with them. I mean, they received your letter, and I thought they were very supportive of it now, if they did something.
Well, we'll see. And by the end, I guess we'll know if they try to attach something in whole. But as for this body, maybe I can work with the county attorney and or someone for us to take this up as an issue of this body, because the critical thing is people beach these things because they financially can't take care of them.
Yeah.
And then it becomes the responsibility of every citizen in Franklin County, unfortunately, to take care of that for someone else. And that's not a responsibility we should bear.
I would agree with that. Thank you.
Just leave that up to the body at some point to weigh in on.
Yep.
But I'd like to see it move, now that boating season's coming up, I'd like to see it sooner rather than later.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I also want to let you all know that March 12th is the governor's prayer breakfast. We do not have it in the budget, but I'm going to pay for a table for all of us if you all would like to go. It's at KSU at 7:30 in the morning on the 12th. So please just let Mitzi know if you'll be attending and would like to sit at the table. But I think it's important that, we're there. That's just me.
Judge, I mentioned it earlier, but I just want to, last meeting we'd asked for a task force for the jail to be scheduled on the 5th, but we have some other things we've been scheduling on the 5th, so the two of us members would like to schedule that on March 4th, next Monday at 1 o'clock.
Okay, let's see what I can do. Send an email right now. I don't forget. Go ahead, Squire.
I've got a senior skills webinar at Western Hills on the 12th that morning, so I might come to the breakfast and then go to this. But my point is, if you have anything that you think would be appropriate for me to present to the students, I would love to hear about it. It's mostly for kids that are staying in Franklin County and may not be going to college. So just any ideas about training, like local training? Yeah. Anything that you think, like I'm going to do AmeriCorps National Service kind of stuff. I've already thought about you, Chief. Police, anything like that that maybe I'm forgetting about. If you want to get me that information, I would love to take it to them.
Thank you very much, Squire. It's all good information. All righty, we ready to roll into voting session?
Yes, sir.
Everybody good? All righty. Clerk, please call roll.
Squire Sebastian.
Here.
Squire Blackburn.
Present.
Squire Dykus.
Here.
Squire Tracy.
Here.
Squire Tanner.
Here.
Squire Wisman.
Present.
Judge Mueller.
Present. That was one. Number 2 has been tabled. Item number 3 has been tabled. Next agenda item, authorizing to approve an agreement with the Compass Center for the Franklin County Regional Jail.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. Authorization to purchase 2 vehicle lists through the State Master Agreement from Choice Equipment LLC for the new road facility.
So moved.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. Authorization to execution of an agreement with West Banco to guarantee deposit for amounts greater than $250,000, the FDIC limit in accordance with KRS 401-240, the Public Funds Law.
So moved.
Second, and Judge, can we make sure that everyone understands the agreement spans March 1st, 2024 through February 28th, 2029, and understand that this is a 5-year agreement, so we're putting together a tickler list of how terms of agreements, this needs to be as part of that.
Okay. Clerk, did you make note of that, please?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Squire. Authorize the treasurer to open a traditional certificate of deposit for $3 million on behalf of the fiscal court to...
We didn't vote.
We didn't.
Oh, I didn't vote? I'm sorry. Thank you. Sorry, it's been a long one. All righty. Do I have a motion for...
You had a
Dykus and Sebastian.
Yeah,
All right, all those in favor say aye. All those opposed, sorry, you threw me, I guess, we got talking.
Sorry,
Yeah, all
it
righty.
wasn't the intent, I thought.
Appreciate y'all keeping me in line. To authorize the treasurer to open a traditional certificate of deposit for $3 million on behalf of the fiscal court to improve investment earnings.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. Authorize the treasurer to open a West Banco certificate of deposit for $5 million on behalf of the fiscal court to improve investment earnings.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. Authorize the treasurer to open an independent certificate of deposit for $3 million on behalf of the fiscal court to improve investment earnings.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. Authorization to approve budget transfers as amended.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. Authorization to receive treasurer's report.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay. Motion passes. Payment of claims. Is there a motion to deny any payment of claims? No motion was made. Let the record reflect claims are to be paid. Authorization to hire Justin Barber as a firefighter.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. Oh, here we go. Authorization to rehire Mark Johnson as part-time seasonal employee for Park Golf.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Motion passes. Authorization to rehire Joe Janner as a part-time seasonal employee for Park Golf.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Motion passes. Authorization to rehire Lee Atha as a part-time seasonal employee for Park Golf.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Motion passes. Authorization to rehire Kevin McCreary as a part-time seasonal employee for Park Golf.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Motion passes. Authorization to rehire Steve Parker as part-time seasonal employee for Park Golf.
So moved. Second.
Did you get it, clerk?
Yes.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. Authorization to rehire Bill Hulty as a part-time seasonal employee for Park Golf.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes.
Just keep it consistent for the record.
Authorization to rehire Kat, I apologize,
Just say cat.
Versus
Just leave it.
Mr. Vick.
Thuckle? No. Say it again? Vera Sethical.
So
As
moved.
part-time season park.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. Authorization to rehire James Tucker as part-time seasonal employee Park Golf.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. Authorization to rehire Kelton Saylor as part-time seasonal employee for Park Golf.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. Authorization to rehire Nick Boswell as part-time seasonal employee for Park Golf.
So moved. Second. Second.
We all want to do that one.
All those in favor say aye.
You
All those-
stole it from me. That's the one I was.
Authorization to rehire James Ernest as part-time seasonal employee Park Golf.
So moved.
Really, now nobody's gonna say anything?
I'm on it.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. Authorization to rehire Wes McLean as part-time seasonal employee park golf.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. Authorization to rehire Chris McDonald as a part-time seasonal employee park golf.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion passes. Authorization to approve a reappointment of Abner Lips to Elkhorn Water District with a term ending December 31, 2027.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion passes. All righty, this next one is the amended item. I'm going to go ahead and read it, the whole thing, if that's okay. Whereas the fiscal court is one of the courts provided for in the Constitution of the state and is given charge and direction of the fiscal affairs of the county, whereas KRS 64.5354 provides the fiscal court of each county shall fix and adjust the reasonable compensation of deputies and assistants to an elected officer, in this case the jailer, whereas KRS 441.225 limits the jailer's role in determining the compensation of adjustments in the compensation of the deputy jailers and assistants, to directing the county treasurer to pay the deputies and assistants their wages as agreed upon by the fiscal court. Now, therefore, by the order of the Franklin County Fiscal Court, it is hereby ordered that any increase in the compensation, whether by performance or promotion, shall fall under the purview of the Franklin County Fiscal Court and shall only be made with the prior approval of the Franklin County Fiscal Court. Do I have a motion?
Motion. I move that we adopt this resolution
Thank you, Squire. Do I have
with the signature line added.
with the signature line?
Second.
And I have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes.
Before we adjourn, I would like to ask that these be delivered to our HR and our payroll clerk.
Perfect. All righty, so I have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Get out.
I'm not gonna make it.
Okay, start at 8 minutes.